3, 2, 1. Joshua, what's happening, my man?
What's going on,
Good to see
man?
you. So I looked at your Instagram yesterday, and you had that video of Stephen A. Smith, and immediately I was like, "Oh my goodness, this explains so much." Play this, play this, Jamie. Watch this. First of all, someone needs to explain to me what's happening here.
Yeah, well, it looks like a dick punch to the left.
I don't even think it's a dick, unless that guy's got a 2-foot dick. Look how low he's punching.
No idea, man.
This guy should not be allowed to talk about fighting.
Yeah, look, I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack. Only, I seriously, we had this, here's the thing, with Strikeforce, we had kind of a similar situation, not like this though, by the way, with Gus Johnson.
I remember,
when Gus
yes.
was trying to talk him, and I love Gus. When he's talking basketball, I think he's got the energy and the voice that makes people like, oh wow, they're gripped to the TV. This, I can understand with Stephen A., but this is not what you want to release. After you just called someone who's a pioneer in the sport, you basically call him a quitter.
You call a guy a quitter. First of all, he had a broken orbital bone, okay? You saying he was a quitter? He got his face smashed, okay? He got cracked by one of the biggest punchers in the sport.
Yeah.
He has the most wins in the sport. He has the most wins by finish. He has the most bonuses. I mean, come on. He has the most fights. Come on. You're calling that guy a quitter? He got cracked. That's what happens. Look, fighting is the only sport that you could end it early, right? You can't end a football game in 40 seconds. Imagine if your front line was so strong, your fucking quarterback was so badass, you could storm a football game in 40 seconds. There'd be a different sport.
Yeah,
right?
My concern with him though was that, like, look, he's fine. He just did the video. And I get it. Like, it's good that you're trying to learn the sport, but I gotta tell you, like, DC sent me this video and he basically commented on it, and I said, D's trying to protect it. DC's trying to protect him. I said, you cannot protect this guy, not from this.
No.
You can't call someone like Cowboy Cerrone or any other top guy in any organization. I don't care if it's UFC, Bellator, One, any of them. All these organizations, you cannot do that to these guys. These guys lay it on the line every time. We're not slapping a puck or hitting a baseball, okay? Yes. We're really out there getting hurt. Yes. And when someone calls you a quitter like that, you better be, I'm not saying he should be careful, like watch his back, but don't expect these fighters to be very courteous to you next time you walk in the hall. And that's the issue that I think we come across here with top fighters are very offensive when they get offended when things like this.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. There's the emotional cost of losing a fight is so much different than losing a game. Right. It's not the same. And there's a culture in sports broadcasting, whether it's radio or television, this just diminishing of people. There's this shit talking that goes with sports. You know, he always falls apart. That guy, that motherfucker needs to give his money back. He sucks. He this and that. And the other guy's like, oh, I can't believe you're saying that. And you could do that in sports radio, and people love it. Because if you're on the job site and you're listening to the radio and you're fucking hammering nails, you're like, you're right, he does suck. And there's a mentality that goes along with that kind of sports radio, sports guy talk. I hate that shit. I've resisted that from the beginning, and I've shit on those guys from the beginning because it's not the same thing. You're not talking about the same thing. You're talking about fighting. You're talking about unbelievable physical consequences, including, knock on wood, in our sport, it's very rare, but death. Yeah.
No, it's true. But the other thing, though, too, is that you're criticizing someone for being a quitter and someone who's been there on every level of the game.
Every level.
But not only that, but then you look like you've never played basketball or baseball or any other sport in your life either, hit mitts like that. I'm sorry. So you cannot criticize people. And to be on a talk show, like you're saying, those talk show radios, that's the energy you need to bring when you're going against someone like Max Kellerman or any of the other, or Skip Bayless and those guys. Go ahead and have that conversation with them. But you can't look like that and then talk shit. I'm sorry, man.
That culture, the culture of the sport. Look, Max Kellerman is a different animal. Max Kellerman is incredibly knowledgeable when it comes to sports, and really so when it comes to boxing. He's not a shit talker. He's just more honest about it.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's a lot of currency in being a Stephen A. Smith. You know, he's really entertaining. That shit talking that he does, he's a guy that's fun to watch. He talks a lot of shit. He gets real loud, and everybody disagrees with him. And look, it's made him a fantastic career. That's why. And he carries that over to MMA. I think it's a bad idea.
Is it a shtick, though? That's my thought. My process, like, you know how Chael has his shtick? Like, he did, and like the camera turns off. Colby has his shtick, and when the camera turns off, they're not that person.
Right.
Is he that person in real life?
I think it blends in. You know,
is it he just now inherited that person, so that's who he is now in real life?
Andrew Dice Clay. Andrew Dice Clay. His real name is Andrew Silverstein. And the Dice Man was a character that he used to do in his act. Dice Clay is like one of the best impressionists ever. Yeah. And he does John Travolta and all these different people, and it's amazing. And in his act, he would do all these impressions, and he would do this guy, the Dice Man. And he would do these fucking rhymes, and he put this jacket on, and everybody loved that so much, he just became the Dice Man. And then after a few years, he was just Dice Man 24/7. He's wearing these leather jackets everywhere. Everywhere he goes, he's got weightlifting gloves on. Every time you meet him, he's got weightlifting gloves. He became this guy, right? And it's a thing that happens to people sometimes where people love one thing. Yeah. You lean into your fans. And I think Stephen A. Smith, I don't know him as a human being. I've only met him a couple times. Yeah. He's a nice guy. Nice guy to me. We had a nice conversation. On air, we had a little weirdness because he was just saying, we didn't learn anything about Conor. I'm like, the fuck you didn't? Yeah. He just destroyed Cowboy in 40 seconds. Like, you learned something. You learned he could perform under the bright lights in a giant pay-per-view after more than a year and a half out of the game. Yeah, you learned something. You just don't know what you saw.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% that he did learn something. I mean, like, I learned something from him, like somebody who taken that amount of time off. And I'm going to say this, to be frank, obviously I work for Bellator and I do a lot of work for them. But the thing is, you can't have to give credit where credit is due. I give credit to all the fighters. Doesn't matter if you're in one. Look, Eddie, to me, is one of the best 55-pounders to ever walk the face of the earth. Agreed. Conor McGregor, to me, I thought he did things in that fight against Khabib that no other guy has been able to do. First off, he won a round. Yes. That's something no one's ever... Now, people say, oh, well, Khabib took the round off. Yeah, because maybe he tried to finish him at the end of the second, but the bottom line is he still won the round. Yes. Okay, and there's not only that, but there was a lot of times and opportunities where Khabib had a hard time getting the takedown. We didn't see that against guys with wrestling backgrounds like Abel Trujillo and those other guys, where he was flinging them around, winning records basically for the most takedowns in one fight. Yes. There's tons of things that Conor does that people overlook and underestimate because he's such a knockout artist and he's so good. And his stance and his style and things like he brought this to the next level. And you cannot discredit what he's done in the sport. What I learned from that is that from somebody who can take 15 months off and come back and perform the way that he did against someone like Donald Cerrone is absolutely amazing. That's what I took.
Why you need guys like you doing post-fight commentary and discussing these, not people who don't understand the sport and practice dick punches.
Well,
it's a different thing.
It's basically
he's hitting babies.
Yeah,
he's really into punching babies.
I want to ask you this though, because it was funny because I could see your face in the middle of it all. How awkward is that for you to stand between the two of them and go, what are you guys fucking talking about?
Yeah, like, I mean, I would have preferred to talk to DC or Felder or you or anybody who understands the sport. I don't think it's the right way to do it. The one gentleman to my right, Michael, Jamie, what is his last name? He was great. And Stephen Smith was very nice to me too, and he said he's going to get into podcasts. I have no problem with him as a human being. No. I just think, look, I don't know jack shit about baseball. I don't know jack shit about basketball. I literally don't even know the rules. I don't know when people foul people. I'm not sure why. I don't know what's happening. Yeah. I know MMA. I understand it. So if you want to talk about MMA, I'd like to talk to MMA about someone else who knows MMA.
Like you were saying, though, I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day with Mike Baker, okay? And he said, like, look, I don't agree with Bernie Sanders' policies, okay? But Bernie Sanders probably is a really nice guy. Yes. But it doesn't mean that I have to like what he does in front of the camera, okay, for him to call MMA. I don't have to like that. I can still like him as a person. Yes. That's where we need to make sure that we differentiate between the two things. Like, look, he probably is a really good guy. And I actually have met him. I met him at the Floyd Mayweather and Conor fight and said hi, said, hey, how's it going? Like, hey, what do you think? And that was the conversation. It was real quick, real brief, maybe 2 minutes. But he seemed like a nice person at that time. But when I was listening to him talk and calling Cerrone basically a quitter, to me, I lost respect in the avenue that you're not supposed to be working in our sport. Yes. Okay, and you need to make some sort of adjustment, whether it's dick punching or something else. But you need to figure it out. You need to, like, I understand, I get that it's a good idea for all people that have never covered the sport to try to get into it. Okay, maybe hold off on the videos like that for a while before you post them. Yeah, but I like that he's trying, and I'm going to give him credit for that. And I think, like with Gus, there was a lot of rumblings about Gus Johnson in the very beginning, but we gave him a run for a while. And I really like Gus. He's a great person, always been great. Every time I've talked to him and met with him and worked with him side by side as well, calling fights with Strikeforce. Great person. But his forte is basketball. And for him, whatever his forte is, Stephen A. Smith, he's got, I think he may have to stick with that. And I think I agree. They have to bring DC back in to work with you alongside.
Yes.
Well, he is phenomenal, man.
Yeah, DC's phenomenal. And DC and me having that conversation would have been a completely different conversation. And it would have been better for the sport because look, there's no positive in downplaying the career of Donald Cerrone or what he can do as a fighter. What that showed to me was how phenomenal Conor performed. Yeah. That's what it showed me. And if either you or I was talking about cricket, we were on TV doing commentary on cricket, we would look out of place. It would be fucked up, and real cricket fans would be upset at us, right? Now that's nothing. That's just a sport, right?
Yeah.
You are naked in the most literal sense of the word. You're naked physically, you're naked emotionally. When fighters lose, it's fucking devastating. For Conor to smash Cowboy like that in front of his wife, his kid, his grandma, and then the whole world, like that's you got to have some respect for that man, you know. And this sport demands a different perspective. It's not the same thing as a ball going into a hoop. No. It's not the same thing as crossing a line with a football. No. It's different. It's very intense and very personal. And it's also very fucking dangerous. And to play it off like it's just a game, I don't agree with it. And I just think that we have plenty of fucking people out there that understand the sport. There's plenty of them.
Yep.
But the thing about him is he's really popular. And Jamie, when you saying he just got a giant deal or something like that?
He's the top paid. I had his contract up. He's got like an extension to get like $8 million a year now or something like that.
Yeah, and that's because his personality is so fun. He's a fun guy to watch, and people love shit talking. They love two people arguing about shit, and one person's better at arguing. And Stephen A. Smith is really good at that stuff. But it's not the place for MMA. It's just not the place. It's not the same thing.
It's not because the guys themselves can fight. Yeah. You know, when you see what happened last night at Kansas and Kansas State or whatever, and they started throwing punches, and it was like it looked like a bunch of girls throwing windmills. You know what I mean? Like that's really the reality of it. It's like, now if he wants to go out there and talk about it, go ahead and talk about it. He can say all the things he wants because these are college kids that can't fight. Obviously, we just saw.
Right.
You know, but we're talking about professional athletes. Their life has been around this craft.
Yes.
And now you're going to say things like that. It's very disrespectful.
It's just so common with sports to talk about a guy who can't show up on game day, to talk about a guy who keeps dropping the ball, talk about a guy and you shit on those guys, but it's just a different thing with fighting. And it's also with fighting, like you have to know it or no one's going to respect you. If you don't know what you're talking about and you're talking about it in front of millions of people, like, man, that's a bad look for everybody.
Yep.
It's a bad look for ESPN. It's a bad look for him. It's a bad look for the sport. It's like there's other people that can do this.
Yeah, we caught a lot of flack for Gus for a while. What Strikeforce did, and then I think it trickled on up to CBS and that whole deal happened. But
Nick Diaz mayhem brawl.
Yes,
these things happen in MMA.
Yeah. That's definitely not the words you want to use in that situation. You know what I mean? But it does, honestly, like you just said, it does reflect badly, not just on ESPN itself, but the UFC as well, because they're in business together. And it kind of looks bad for both. Like, hey, you guys, we need to monitor who's behind that microphone because we're representing our talent, and our talent is what makes us the money.
But what's funny is with Stephen A. Smith, his personality and his brand is based on that kind of shit talking. So this is all good for him. This is all good for him. Like, the more people talk shit about him, the better it is for him. And then he just ramps it up even more, and more people are paying attention. The ratings go up.
Until he sees Cowboy in an elevator. Go right a fucking head, buddy. Let me hear you. Who's quitting now, bitch?
Yeah.
You know, those are the things that I got to tell you. You just don't know. Think about this. If he said something like that about a Nate or Nick Diaz and they saw him in a fucking elevator,
they would fuck him up.
They would fuck him up.
Legitimately.
You would just got to be, like, those are scenarios where you just got to be careful. Now, the Cowboy's never going to do that. Hey, man, kind of just watch what you say. Come on, man. Like that. You know, my family's there. My grandmother's there. You know, my kid's there.
Right.
Like, you know, let's dial it back a little bit. That's Cowboy's a fucking... He's just an amazing person, you know, overall.
Yeah,
so when you're talking, when you're talking about athletes and fighters, like Nate Diaz, though, he ain't saying shit to you. He's just gonna sock you.
Look, everybody knows what happened. What happened is Conor had a spectacular performance. Cowboy got caught off guard and he got finished quick. That's what happened.
Yep.
All the other stuff is unnecessary. The emotional devastation of a 40-second KO like that is. We have, as a respectful human being, you got to leave all that other stuff alone. All that shit talking. If you want to say it in the gym to one of your homies and you're just hanging out, and maybe one of them doesn't like Cowboy, and and someone talks trash, and that's private and no one hears it, that's fine and good. But when you want to do that publicly, you want to broadcast that, and then also do it on ESPN, I think it's just short-sighted, and I think it's foolish.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit more hard in the paint on guys like DC who are on my post right there. The one. He's defending him right now. That's
Is he defending him?
He's defending. Well, hey man, he's trying to learn the sport. He's trying. I said, D, quit trying to toe the company line, son. That's what you're doing right now. And then I got Kendall Grove that goes on there too, saying, "Oh, you know what? I can respect the fact that he's trying to learn it. Look at this. Is what
I
he
think
says
it's
right
fine. He's trying to better understand our sport. It means he's a massive star who could talk from his perch and no one can touch him. Yet he chooses to try and learn the game, so there's some weight to his opinion. You're a little off base, champ." Oh, DC's a wonderful person.
Oh, he's just struggling. I told him, look, just because Stephen A. Smith might be good for business in the ESPN business for you later on, I said, that doesn't mean you got to toe that line, buddy.
Yeah.
I'd like to give him a hard time. But look, DC's one of my best friends, man, and he's absolutely hilarious and just fun. He likes to do this to stir the pot because like you were just saying with Stephen A., he likes to do this type of stuff, so people keep talking.
Yes.
DC likes to chime in on shit like this. So we're here right now talking about DC and this whole situation. That's exactly what DC does. He's brilliant when it comes to this type of stuff.
And I'm sure he really does love Stephen A. as a person.
Yeah.
Stephen A. he's a nice guy. Like I said, I've met him a couple of times. He's a nice guy. But just to there's a style of broadcasting that's sports radio and sports broadcasting that they do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when it leaks over into fighting is just not a sport. Like you can call it a sport, and it's kind of a sport, but it's sport in its highest sense of expression, where you're literally using your body to try to stop another man's body.
Yeah.
And it is intense as it gets, and I think it deserves more respect. That's just my opinion. That's how I've always treated it. That's how I've always, when I talk about fighters, or my concentration has always been to elevate. My concentration has never been to demean someone, unless there's something that they did that's illegal. If there's some sort of blatant foul that should be stopped, or something that's really dangerous that they're doing that should be chastised. But the sport it's a higher level of consequence and risk, and it needs to be respected that way.
Yeah, I feel so. I listened to your show quite a bit, and I like a lot of what you had talked about before when you first got into comedy, about talking about how some of the other comics was like kind of shit on other young comics kind of up and coming. And when you came in, it was like a different, you try to just ingrain in people like, hey, I want to build you all of you guys up that are with me on the same set. If we're doing the show, we're all on the same night, let's all just fucking make each other look good. I feel like, especially in fighting, whether it's boxing, MMA, anything along those lines, we got to be elevating each other to make each other better.
Yes.
Like, hey, this guy is good, without talking shit, because we, like yourself specifically, as well as like even myself and other guys that have shows and podcasts and start talking, we're on a different level of platform that can really kind of either make or break some people's careers.
Yes.
It also, the sport is confidence. Okay, MMA is a confident level. Anytime you do wrestling, it's a one-on-one combative sport. Anytime wrestling, MMA, confidence is key. If my confidence is low, then that means that I'm probably not going to perform my best. And when you take a loss, it goes lower and lower. When you got to hear it from fucking people that don't know the business, like this right here, it's just another thing added on. And for other MMA guys to shit on other MMA guys, all that does is tear them down even more, and you could potentially, I'm not saying ruin their career, but you're not helping them get to their goals and their levels. It's better if everyone shines and we all handle ourselves with class and respect. And I feel like we just, in general, need to hold ourselves to a higher standard if we're talking MMA, and making sure that we showcase this guy is really good. Like here, I'll give you an example. All I do when I talk about Frankie Edgar is talk about how such an amazing person, even when he has a bad performance, he's still one of the best to ever do the game, and all the things that he's done from before in the past. I say the same thing about BJ Penn. Somebody who, look, he exploded on the scene. I was training with him when he had that first run through Din Thomas, Uno, all those guys. He was training at AKA. All the things that happen now, to me, those are just bumps in the road as fighters get older, and they just don't know how to react. Like, this is it. I don't know what's going on. Like, they need somebody to step in, not shit on them. They need someone to step in and talk to him. I text and talk to him all the time. It's like, hey, man, it might be time to move on. It might be not. Whatever the deal is, but they're good people at heart. I know them personally, and we should just be talking in general about lifting these guys up to the next level. And that's the way I think every sport should handle it.
The argument against that would be the massive success that Conor's had, shitting on people in press conferences and shitting on people and leading up to a fight, and the fact that that's built up so much animosity, but also so much attention, like the Aldo fight. Dude, he made that fight by talking so much shit. It's a big part of why that fight was so successful. And it was also like some serious psychological warfare. When Aldo went into that cage with Conor, you could see the weight of all that shit talking was weighing heavy on him. You could see it. It was like he probably hadn't slept. He's probably really fucked up like that emotionally, because Aldo was super respected. He was the fucking king. He was the guy that had torn through the featherweight division for years, and he had beaten everybody, beaten the best of the best, and widely regarded as the greatest featherweight of all time. And then all of a sudden, Conor's just shitting on him, and shitting on him, and shitting on him, tearing his picture apart, stealing his belt at press conferences, and all that craziness. It made the fight way bigger, but it also fucked with Jose physically and emotionally. So when they actually fought, he had a diminished performance. He was too emotional. He lost his composure. He rushed forward. He tried to hit him before everything was set up, and he got cracked for it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying in those terms, but like when you're promoting a fight to me is a separate thing. Though I think Conor overstepped the boundary when he talked about Khabib and all the other family stuff, especially when he posted the picture with his wife. That to me is, you're over the, like, I understand. Like, Chael's done it a couple times when he talked about Jenna Jameson and Tito and that whole situation. Like, there's moments, I think, where guys have stepped over the line. But if I'm talking shit to you, taking your belt and doing those things, look, I'm marketing the fight.
Right.
That's a separate issue than doing what some guys do.
And if you get a percentage of the pay-per-view, it actually benefits you when that guy shits on you, which is even more disturbing.
Yeah. But the other thing as well is that, look, always, whether win or lose, Conor's never shown a disrespect after. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that afterwards, as far as like in the cage, when they see him, hey, great fight. Even when he lost to Nate the first time, he was very respectful.
Yes.
Very respectful. And I think, look, there's a difference between marketing the fight and then realize when the fight's done, shaking hands, be like, okay, look, let's do it again. And that to me that's a fighter's mentality. I want another crack at you, whether I won or I lost. I want another crack at you. It's okay to market the fight, but once the fight is done, shake your hand. And that's what this sport is about. That's what fighting is about. That's what it's always been about. From back in the days when guys would just put up their dukes. I mean, that was, we would fight each other, okay, help you up off the ground, shake your hand, and move on.
Well, people like that about it. It's one of the things. Do you remember when Ronda Rousey beat Miesha Tate and she wouldn't shake her hand after the fight? And the fucking boos were so crazy. I was interviewing her after the fight. You could barely hear her talk. It was just boo. People didn't like it. They didn't like it at all.
Yeah, no, that's you're gonna always get that. I think when there's blatant disregard or disrespect for somebody, especially of that caliber, like Miesha Tate,
and after the fight's over,
like
what people want to see is that it's resolved. They don't want to see these crazy endless wars where you're never happy. You just armbarred. You fucked her arm up. Yeah, and you're still upset.
Yeah, we got plenty of endless wars everywhere else. We don't need that shit in the cage.
Exactly. Man, when you see Conor at 170, obviously he beat Donald really handily. But do you think he's a legit 170?
No, I don't think so. Because we saw with Khabib. Khabib could potentially be a legit 170, but even him, he'll be a little bit too small
for guys like Usman.
Yeah, guys like Usman. Now, I think he could out wrestle Usman. He can out wrestle Colby. I think he can out wrestle.
You think so?
100%.
Really?
I've seen him wrestle with DC. I've seen him wrestle with Olympic caliber wrestlers in our room. I'm telling you right now.
Did he train with Jordan Burroughs at your place?
I didn't see him train with Jordan, but I heard Jordan came through. Yeah, but I wasn't sure if I wasn't there during that time.
I would like to be a fly on the wall to watch those two guys go at it.
But I can tell you this: he trained with Ed Ruth.
Yeah, how was that?
And it was what? Yeah,
really?
I mean,
you don't want to say anything, but
no. But there was moments though where Ed was able to get some stuff on him, but then he was able to get some stuff on Ed as well, and Ed was able to get Khabib was able to get the takedowns as well on a 3-time NC2A national champ.
Wow!
And you could tell. Look, Khabib's had more experience in terms of MMA. You know, like Sambo was basically just MMA with a gi top on, and occasionally they wear shin guards. With Ed was relatively new into the sport when they first started training, and Ed was able to do a lot of good things to him, and Khabib was able to do a lot of good things to him. Without saying too much, both of them definitely benefit from their training together, and that's what's great about our gym is that it's not a pissing match in our gym. Like, sure, guys want to one up each other when it comes to sparring, but I would say that Ed, he got the better of learning the most from that situation, whereas Khabib realized that his stuff works on the top caliber guys in the world.
Well, you guys have at AKA, you guys have one of the most top wrestling heavy in terms of high level wrestling. Like, you have one of the most concentrated camps.
Yeah, what people need to remember is that camp was ran by Crazy Bob Cook and Javier, Crazy Bob Cook, but then also when Bob Cook linked up with Zinkin Entertainment, and the Zinkin family is very into wrestling. All three brothers were All-Americans at Fresno State, wrestled with Lorenzo Neal, who was a professional football player in the NFL, but also wrestled at Fresno State, also an All-American. Those guys all linked up, and they're big into wrestling. So what they've done, like I could tell you this, is the three brothers would, if I brought up to a wrestler right now that I'd never heard of, you probably never heard of, they could tell you all their stats. They could tell you what they did in high school. They could tell you what they did in college. They could tell you how far they potentially will go in the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like, that's how much ingrained that they are into this. So a lot of the reasons why we've gotten guys like Ed Ruth, Aaron Pico was signed with them when he first started his career. DC, Deron Wynn, all these guys that have come, they've all come through because of Dwayne Zinkin.
Aaron Pico is a crazy case, right? He's such a talented guy, and he's still very young.
Yes.
But there was so much hype on that kid right out of the gate, and they put him in against real tough competition right out of the gate.
Yeah, look, he had to fight tough competition right out of the gate. There's a couple things. What people need to understand is if I'm going to pay you this amount of money because there's so much hype around you, then you're going to have to fight this level of guy.
Right.
Okay? Now, the problem with what happened with him, he's not a 55-pounder. He's tiny. So he could potentially make 35.
Really?
Yeah, he's not a big guy. So that's what people keep forgetting. So when he wanted to stay at 55, we said, okay, we'll give it a go. Let him get one or two fights, in that position. But no one wanted to fight him. No one. Like, we were calling some of the best guys in Bellator, at the time. They're like, no, we want to see a couple of fights of his first before we go, throwing our names out there to fight this guy. Well, let's see how he is. You know what I mean? And so when that happened, and I'm not knocking them. I mean, that's smart on their part. I mean, every top guy's going to be like, yeah, let's see what he is first, and then we'll figure it out. But then as soon as he lost to Zach Freeman, who was tall, long, lengthy, good, decent submissions, not a world beater, but he was good. Aaron got exposed in the first fight, got clipped, then jumped in on a double leg, got guillotine, was out. Okay. Then he decided to make the loop down to 145, had a couple good performances. He's got big dogs. He's got big dogs in his hands. He's got heavy hands, but he's a boxing base with wrestling background, which works if you've already been around guys that have done plenty of kickboxing. If you're just a boxing base, kicks come from angles you're not used to, like different from punches. And so he just needed to get to a camp and stay focused on one area with one or two coaches that would groom him into that. Now that he's at Jackson Wink, I think it's perfect for him because he's there with good, really, really good grapplers and really, really good guys. And so with Jackson there, grooming him and telling him how the game plan. Jackson's one of the best at game planning. I mean, you can't deny that. And the fact is that he just needed someone to get in there. Now, I do know, like, he had a couple little issues. Like, obviously, he really didn't go to high school. I mean, like, as far as he was just traveling around and trying to become the best wrestler in the world. I mean, at a young age, he's winning everything. And it's hard when you take someone from school, put them into that type of thing, and they have success, and they think they're going to continue to have success on a world-class level, like in any sport. And since he had such success at a young age, his dad and his family got really involved into doing that and pushing him in that direction. And that's not always the best scenario and situation. I think sometimes you need to have management and trainers guide you when you're talking about a sport that other people have no idea what's going on. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. Like, if people think like, oh, I think family members, and I hear this all the time, and I can speak from experience. My family sometimes comes in and says, yeah, how come, you don't make what Conor McGregor's making? It's not the same. Christ. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you know, like those are, it's not the same. You know what I mean? And
you don't have to explain the entire business to them.
I'd have to explain everything. And so when you have someone like Pico's parent, his dad and his brother, I think were kind of helping with management and trying to get sponsors and do this. They were expecting people to bend over and be like, hey, you know, like, yeah, this is Aaron Pico and this and that, because he's had such success at a young age and how good and talented he was in the gym. But like Alvin Iverson said, man, we're talking about practice. It's not the same thing. Yeah. You know, and he's great, but when the lights turn on and the fight happens and we're sparring in little gloves, not 16-ounce gloves, okay, it changes. The dynamic of the game changes.
And you also have to take into consideration that, yeah, he's had a tremendous amount of success in wrestling. And yes, he's got very good hands. But he has a small amount of MMA fights. And this is MMA. And that's the difference. There is a difference. And he's also a really young guy who's experienced some pretty high highs and pretty low lows very quickly. I think guys need to be managed better. And what I mean by that is, the same way boxing handles it. Boxing, you see guys get to 15, 16-0. When you see a guy like Khabib who's 28-0, you go, how the fuck? No one gets there. Yeah. You got John Jones, who's essentially undefeated. Mm-hmm. You know, the Matt Hamill fight, in my mind, he won that fight. Yeah. He crushed him. Yeah. There was never a moment in that fight where he was in doubt. He just got disqualified. And I don't even agree with the disqualification. But he's a rarity. It's him, and it's Khabib, and maybe there's a couple other guys that are like elite high-level guys that are undefeated. Yeah. They're the outliers. Most guys get thrown to the wolves like really quickly, but in boxing, you see that all the time because managers slowly groom their fighters. They go, okay, Josh, you know what, Josh? You're a fucking great puncher, but you know your inside game maybe should be tested. We got this tough Mexican dude who likes to fight inside, so we're going to match you up with him. You should beat him, but it's going to give you some seasoning, and they'll move you along that way. Okay, we're going to try you against a long, lanky striker. Sometimes you have problems with the jab, and this guy's got a significant reach advantage. Let's see. And then the boxing managers and coaches, they'll think about this shit for days and weeks before they commit to a fight. Whereas in the UFC calls you up. Hey, you want to fight Khabib on 3 days' notice? You're like, what? And then all of a sudden you're there.
Well, because boxing managers are usually in cahoots with the promoter. Mm-hmm. So the two of them work together. That's not the case with any promotion in MMA. Like the promoter is the promoter and the manager is the manager. And you take what we give you, and if you don't, then okay, we'll put you on the shelf for 6 months. Yep. Okay, because that's like those type of things have been presented to me a couple times, and Joe was the manager at the time, or trying to matchmake me when I was supposed to fight Anthony Pettis for the title. And he called and said, hey, Pettis is out. He's like, yeah, we want you to fight some tough Russian guy, that I've never heard of. And I was like, I just knocked out Nate. And I was supposed to fight for the title. I'm not going to fight some tough Russian guy from Dagestan I've never heard of. No, thanks. Yeah. He's like, fine, I'm going to shelf you for 6 months. And I just told him, I said, hey, man, I'm pretty good with my money. I'll wait. So he just said, okay. So a week later, I got the Benson fight.
That's such a fucked up thing to even say to someone.
It is.
Shelf you.
Yeah, it is, though. But, in reality, though, like, look, here's the thing. And I will say this, and I will stick up for Joe, even though I just said that. I will stick up for Joe Silva. I met with him shortly after that, and he's like, look at my phone. You see this? This is your division. He's like, you see all these? These are all fighters in the division. He's like, you see the ones at the top that you wanted to fight? Yeah, all those guys in red, they're hurt. He only had 2 people to choose from. So, and those 2 people were already matched up against each other. So what do you do?
But that's the thing. Like, do you just take a fight because you want to keep fighting? But how does it move your career when you are literally 1 shot away from the title? Because when you knocked out Nate Diaz, first of all, you were the first guy to do it. You did it spectacularly with a head kick. A lot of people forget that for some reason. People keep saying he's never been stopped. I'm like, go back and watch the tape.
I like that you stick up for me. I appreciate that.
Always.
Thank you.
Always. But so you're in this crazy position where you're really knocking on the door for a title. Yeah. And then they're saying, go fight some savage from the fucking mountains.
Yeah. it was really good.
Wow, the fucking Dagestanians, they're the scariest fucking humans on the planet. It's amazing how many tough guys come from that part of the country or the world.
They've exploded on the scene, and I think it's amazing to see them grow. And I think I've seen, when Khabib first came into AKA, I was like, well, he's tough. He's just a wrestler, not a lot, but he's still had some submission defense, good leg locks, good. He was physically strong then. He's just he just gained a lot more confidence now with anything in the gym. Doesn't matter what it is. Like I said, I've seen him wrestle with DC. I've seen him wrestle with Luke Rockwell. I've seen him wrestle, obviously, with myself. We wrestled tons of times. Guys like Gray Maynard and all those guys, you know, and he's phenomenal. Like when people ask me, when you said something about him, who were you saying?
We're talking about him at lightweight. Oh, you were talking about with
Jordan
Burroughs
him. Yeah, with him. No, him with Usman and those. Yes. I think he out wrestles those guys.
Wow,
I think he out wrestles them. Yeah, 100%. I think he out wrestles them. The guy that I thought he would have had a hard time out wrestling would have been Ben Askren. That would have been his guy. Wow. I think that guy right there would have been the only guy that I think could have potentially out wrestled him. Ben
is hurting now, man. You can see how he walks.
Yeah,
like you could see his hip all fucked up. He needs a hip replacement.
Yeah, he needs to get it done. I mean, like that's the thing. And
but if he does, he's never going to fight again.
Why is he done? I think, isn't he done?
I think he's done because of the hip.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the recovery process is. Is it a hip replacement, or is it just
a hip replacement?
Let's scope it all out, clean it out, and see how it goes, and then see if he needs a hip replacement after?
No, he and I discussed it. It's a mess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these guys. They're so tough. They're almost too tough for their own good, and they're training on injuries and just pushing through the pain, and they're just chewing up the cartilage and tearing up the labrum and.
Yep. Yeah. And I want to. And here's the thing, like to go back to the Joe Silva thing, but then a lot of it is because conversations like that. Mm-hmm. It's the conversation of like, well, fine, we're just going to shelf you. Well, these guys, when they get a call for a title or they get a call for a fight, like on the main card, or you know, their families are starving or they're hungry. People think that everyone's making Conor McGregor money. My whole family thought I was making Conor McGregor. Like, well, you're not making that money. And I'm like, you guys, I almost want to say, shut up. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. I've been getting punched in the face for 20 years. I don't want to hear this shit right now.
Someone's got a gut and a beer.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh, how come you're not making any more money?
Yeah, it's the game,
I never
man.
Thought about it.
Yeah. You know, maybe next time I talk to these guys, I'll tell them.
Definitely tell them to give me that Conor McGregor money. Yeah.
You know, but look, what I wanted to talk to you about was like you and Brendan had a talk and conversation about guys like Lima and other guys having, you know, competition with top guys.
I think Lima's a top guy. I think Michael Chandler's a top guy. I think Bellator has several guys that could compete with anybody in the world.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing about ONE FC. I still maintain to this day Mighty Mouse is probably the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet.
Probably, yes.
I mean, John Jones has faced stiffer competition because there's stiffer competition in the light heavyweight division. But the way Mighty Mouse was running through the division, the way Mighty Mouse would just not get hit, the expression of martial arts, in my opinion, when I watched him, I've never seen anybody more impressive.
So what's your take on him being traded then?
I think they offered him a tremendous amount of money at ONE, and the flyweight division has never been a moneymaker for the UFC, and Henry Cejudo beat him in a very close decision, and I think they just came to a position where Mighty Mouse was like, look, I'm not going to make as much money in the next fight because I lost, but ONE FC is going to pay me X amount of times more than that. Mm-hmm. And they gave him a huge contract, man. You know, and they have, look, Chatri's amazing, and what they're doing over at ONE FC. I think it's great for everybody. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great that the athletes have options. I think the competition is great for the UFC. When you see someone rise and someone start smashing people over there and everybody goes, hey, that guy might be the best 170-pounder in the world, that's good for everybody. Because then you could set up potentially like a cross-promotional fight if someone's that big, and we get to find out. We get to find out who's the number one in the world. That's what it's supposed to be all about. And the more competition there is, the more big organizations there are, and the more places that athletes go, it's way better for the fighters.
Yeah.
And that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, so I worked for ONE for a while, and I work for Bellator now, but I was doing cage-side commentary for them. And I called a couple of Timofey Nastyukin's fights, the guy that knocked out.
He's a fucking monster.
So if you were, like, I told Jamie, I said before you came, I said, I'm going to call on you a couple times. I said, so started laughing.
When he stopped Alvarez, I was like, that guy is a fucking killer.
He's got dogs in his hands. And I'm telling you right now, he either loses by submission in the first round or he knocks you out in the first round. I want to say up until like his 10th fight or 9th fight or something like that, he'd never gone outside the first round. He either knocked you out or he lost. And his record at the time was 9 or 10-1 when I was calling his fights. He had only had one loss, and I think he had lost by knockout. But he's got heavy dogs, got good hips and takedown defense.
Yeah, there he is.
The kid's phenomenal.
Technique, and he's just fucking rock solid. Rock solid everywhere. Fucking super savage in his approach. he's elite, man. I mean, he's elite in terms of, he could fight anybody in the world that's his size.
Yeah.
I really believe, look, that guy's a fucking animal, man. For him to beat down Eddie Alvarez like that, you're talking about Eddie Alvarez, a guy who's like notoriously one of the toughest fucking guys in the sport, period. And that was a real wake-up call for a lot of people. There's some guys over there, just because you don't know their name doesn't mean, like, look, when fucking Zabit came over here, people didn't know his name, and then they see that guy fight, you're like, what the fuck? Where'd you come from? 360 roundhouse kicks and crazy fucking scissor sweeps and taking people down, submitting them, head kicking them, doing everything. There's hundreds of guys like that out there.
They're everywhere. And that's the other thing is they're not just in Dagestan. Sure, I think right now that's a market that needs to be tapped into across for every promotion. But they're also in Asia somewhere. They're also in other countries everywhere else. Like I do know that there's a lot of top talented guys like in Sweden and Switzerland that just never get to play because there's not a MMA market there really. But they're great jiu-jitsu guys. There's good MMA gyms out of all these places, especially in Italy and all these other places. We're seeing talent come. And when I heard that he was fighting, when I heard Eddie was fighting Nasution, I was like, oh shit. I said either Eddie's going to be able, if Eddie's able to get him down and get on top, because he does tend to fade a little bit, Nasution, as it gets into the second and third round. But if he can't get him down in that first round, I said he's going to get knocked out. 100%. Because I love Eddie, but he got a little chinny at some points, not to the point where he gets knocked out, but he's always been rocked, comes back, and then fucks people up.
Yeah.
But this is a guy that I'd seen him just starch guys. I mean, he fought this guy, what was his name? Something Full and there was talk and conversation about this guy was going to, knock out Timothy. And I mean, I don't think it was almost like an Alistair Overeem type knockout, when Ngannou snapped his head back. And I was like, oh God, he was out cold. And so when I see guys like him and there's other guys, that are in these organizations all around, like to me, Patricio Pitbull is probably the best 145 pounder in the world. And I'm a big Max Holloway fan. But I've talked about this before with Big John, is that styles make matchups. And Big John has talked to me about that being in the cage calling, or refereeing Max's fights. And he said Volkanovski will give him problems. And sure enough, Volkanovski gave him problems. He said, that will let me know how good Patricio Pitbull would do against Max Holloway. The speed, the wrestling, the power, all those things Patricio has. And to me, Patricio is better than Volkanovski just from what I can see, not from the Max fight, but from a lead up to all the fights. So I take guys like Lima, I take guys like Patricio, who knocked out Michael Chandler at 155 pounds. I take those guys and I'll put those guys against not just UFC guys, all these guys all day long. These guys are nasty and they're tough.
Who is this right here,
This is Patricio Pitbull.
Patricio.
So there's Patricky, which is the older brother at 155. And then there's Patricio, who's at 145, and he's also now the 155-pound champ.
Yeah.
But to me, he now, like when I'm talking, like you talking about Henry Cejudo, guys attach themselves to guys because they can make themselves better. I'm not going to go train and stake my claim with someone unless I know that the two of us are making each other better. That's his main training partner, Henry Cejudo's. And that's Henry Cejudo's his main training partner. Juan Archuleta was on like a 19-fight win streak and then faced him. Juan Archuleta didn't look like the same Juan Archuleta when he got in there. And when guys are that good at that next level, that's what happens. They make somebody look like they don't belong in there. And that's what happened. And I was like, man, because people keep giving MVP a ton of shit. And I'm like, dude, this guy's that good. Stephen Thompson in the beginning wasn't getting any respect either. And look at him. Like they've got that style of like, oh, I could get him down. I could take him down. I could do this. But guys are so good at their one craft that, man, you just can't get to them, and they make these guys look like that.
No, listen, I'm with you on this, and I disagreed with Brendan. Brendan thinks if you're not in the UFC, you're not shit, and I don't think that's true.
Why did he get? I want to know why. Why?
He's got a little Stephen A. Smith in him. Just a touch.
I love Brendan, man.
Just a sprinkle. Look, he's one of my best friends.
I just saw him last weekend in San Jose. I went to his show.
But he likes to talk crazy shit too. But he also believes what he's saying. He really does. He believes what he's saying. I disagree. I mean, the Michael Venom Page thing's a perfect example. He's so good that Paul Daly turned into a fucking wrestler.
Yeah.
Right? How crazy is that?
I want to tell you a story on that real quick. He goes,
Paul Daly murks people.
Paul Daly turned to some of the guys at Bellator and go, hey, man, I just want to apologize before he walked out. I just want to apologize. It's going to be a boring fight. It's straight up said that.
Really?
He straight up like, hey, I just want to apologize. This is gonna be a boring fight.
Wow, that's crazy. But look, if you watch how well Michael Venom Page moved in that fight, you almost understand it. Because Paul, with that traditional Thai style, look, Paul knocked out Lorenz Larkin. Okay,
Yeah.
Lorenz Larkin is an evil man.
He's nasty.
He's
good.
so good. When you watch him, you watch his style, his movement. I mean, against Neil Magny, throwing those those oblique kicks to the body. Who the fuck does that?
Yeah.
You know that one that a lot of guys like to throw to the thigh.
Yep.
He's hitting him in the body like a front kick with that. Blah! And I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's so technical on his feet. He's so sweet on his feet. So for you see him get knocked out by Paul Daly, you realize, God damn, that Paul Daly's a motherfucker. Yeah. That left hand of his is one of the best weapons in the sport. Everybody goes to sleep. And here it is. You see Paul Daly taking him down. And I was like, I can't believe this. I remember, like, the fucking power that he has. Paul Daly's power is, like, his left hand in particular, one of the scariest fucking weapons in the sport. It really is. He just, he's probably 36 now.
Yeah.
He's not the same guy that he was when he was 25.
He's not bad, though. I'm telling you right now, he's still really damn good.
Fuck yeah.
If we put him back, I'm just saying, if we put him back in the UFC, I'd still say he's probably in the top 5 or 6.
Well, he's always going to have a problem with real wrestlers.
Yeah, of course he is. But I also think that his game has always been shaped like guys like John Fitch were able to just grind and grind and grind. But guys like Usman and Colby, they grind on you, sure. But with John, when he fought him the last time, John's at a different stage in his career where he's not letting go of the leg for anything. Usman and Colby will make space to throw punches, which could get them in trouble against somebody like him, because his power in his left hand is fucking nasty.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Like if you pull up, if you see the fight with him when he wobbled or dropped Nick Diaz. Yeah, Nick Diaz don't get dropped the shit.
I know.
Like that.
But how crazy is Nick Diaz? Nick Diaz forced him into a dogfight.
That's just
forced him into a dogfight.
And that was one of the most freakish, weirdest knockouts.
It was amazing.
But the thing is, that was when UFC had first taken over Strikeforce, and I was sitting there cage size, and I'm thinking to myself, this is hands down the greatest MMA 1-round fight I've ever seen in my life.
It was amazing. It was amazing. He just wore him out.
Yeah.
He just put that fucking Nick Diaz pace on him and wore him out. But when he clipped him and rocked him and dropped him, I was like, oh my God, Paul Daly's going to stop Nick Diaz? This is crazy.
This is nuts.
But just the fact that Nick fought him that way.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick didn't try to take him down. Nick didn't try to submit him. He just went after him. Just like, come on, let's do this.
But let's not forget the history of Nick Diaz, man. Yeah. It all started with Robbie Lawler. The history of Nick Diaz started with Robbie Lawler. Like, come on, motherfucker, I got this. Yeah. And that's what elevated him to that next level.
I called that fight. He walked into the octagon. He started yelling, Stockton, motherfucker, Stockton. And Robbie Lawler's like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Like, Robbie Lawler was this dark destroyer. Everybody was scared of him. He was a spooky dude. He was flatlining people. And Nick Diaz, not only was he not scared of him, he was talking mad shit to him. He was fighting him. He's like, what, bitch? What we doing, bitch? What we doing, bitch?
And people don't understand this. It's so funny. I was talking to Big John the other day on our show, and I was saying, like, hey, man, the guys that I didn't got so damn tired when guys talk to me. It stresses me the fuck out, man. I'm like, I just start sweating, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. We're supposed to be fighting. I couldn't believe it. I was like, dude.
Do you remember when Nick Diaz did that to Frank Shamrock? And Frank Shamrock was like, I can't believe this is happening.
Because it's usually Frank that does it. Yes. I trained with Frank for years, and I'm like, I'm in his guard, and he's like, come on, Josh, get up, like throw punches, do something. I'm going to fucking sub you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you're just like, shut up, man. I just want to punch you harder, and it makes you more tired.
And the fact that Nick was doing it and out cardioing him.
Yes.
Frank's thing was always be in the best shape so you could put, like when he beat Tito.
Yeah.
Just put that pace on him, and Tito couldn't keep up, and then he finished him.
Yeah, Frank was not the same guy when he fought Nick at that time. But let's be real, like at that time, like it was awesome to see somebody like Nick do that. Because Nick, though, if you recall at the end of the fight, he picks Frank up. He's like, you're a fucking legend. Do not sit down there like that. You're a fucking legend. And that's what people talk to me all the time about my fight with Nate. And I say, look, man, I have nothing but respect for both those guys. Those guys are fucking animals. Not only are they animals, but what I love is I love people. We were talking about Big John being a good guy before we came on the show. Yeah. And Big John McCarthy. And I said, absolutely. And when I think of guys that are good guys, I think of guys that stick by their friends no matter what. Yes. You got to remember that brawl that happened on CBS, right? We were talking about that as well. That brawl with Mayhem Miller, Jake Shields, Nick Diaz. But guess what? That whole scrap pack, they die for each other.
Yes.
And you can't knock friendship like that. And I look at those guys, and they're really good people. From Gilbert Melendez, his wife Carrie, Nick and Nate, and Jake. Jake's like still one of my good buddies. Gil is as well, but even though I don't talk to Nate anymore, really, but it's still, I have nothing but respect for those guys themselves. They did it on their own, and they're fucking amazing. I will buy their pay-per-view every single time they fight, no matter what.
Agreed. And, Nick Diaz changed the game in terms of his elite cardio. He did something that was a new thing, and that new thing was, he's not going to hit you with 100% power. He's going to hit you with 50%, but he's going to hit you twice as much, and you're never going to get to breathe. And he's going to stay on top of you, and he's going to talk to you the whole time. So he's going to fuck with you psychologically. He's going to disrupt your breathing by constantly hitting you. And then once he realizes you're hurt, then he's digging to the body. Then he's putting it on you. And on top of that, black belt jiu-jitsu skills, really good wrestling takedown defense, fucking chin made of iron, and an unstoppable will. His will to beat you was just unstoppable. When Nick was at the top in Strikeforce, to this day, I think he's one of the best fighters that's ever done it.
Yep.
To this day.
No, I agree. I think a lot of that unstoppable will, though, comes from him doing triathlons. That's that desire. Like, hey, I cannot stop, otherwise I lose my time. And I'm only got 5 more miles or 8 more miles until I get to the bike, or until I get to the run, or until I get to the I'm done with the swim. Those are things in your mind as an athlete. You're always thinking like, I'm almost there.
Yes.
Okay, I'm only going to run till the 2-minute mark. Okay, I'm only going to run to the 5 minute. You set goals for yourself as you go. Shit, I smashed a goal. Okay, one more goal ahead. Those are the things that top athletes do, and I feel like that's what he's done with his career. He used triathlons to help get him there.
Yes.
He was always good, always nasty, like good jiu-jitsu, great, phenomenal guillotines. His game has always been really good. When he upped his game in in boxing, and the pace, like you're saying, just the touch, now bam, bam, touch, bam. That's next level boxing that we hadn't seen in MMA at the time.
Yeah, and sparring with Andre Ward on a regular basis too. I mean, he did. Look, he did really change things. He really changed things, particularly with that fucking cardio of his. He has some spooky cardio. Speaking of spooky cardio, let's talk about Tony Ferguson.
Okay.
That guy's got some, and you have personal experience with Tony Ferguson.
Yes.
That guy has some
Unfortunately.
He's got spooky fucking cardio, man. And I give him a real shot against Khabib. I give him a real shot.
Okay, so I do and I don't. And I'm not trying to take a dig at him. I actually am a big fan of his, okay? And I was a big fan of his before I fought him. And I did a lot of research on him leading up to the fight. I never really showed him any respect up until like, he's just okay. He's a little sloppy. He's this, he's that. But once I did the research on him leading up to our fight, it impressed me. What impressed me was, dude, the guy can take a shot, give a shot. The guy doesn't slow down. The guy doesn't care where the fight goes. Anytime you have somebody who doesn't care where the fight goes, it changes the dynamic of how you approach him. Because if you take him down, what does that matter? He don't care. Okay, he's good with the darts. He's good with the guillotine. He's good with triangles. He's good with all those. He doesn't care. So if he stays on the feet, guess what? He keeps his distance and his range with his long range push kicks and his jabs and his combinations. He doesn't care where the fight goes. Neither does Khabib, but obviously Khabib would like to keep the fight on the ground, press against the fence, doing work, what he's done, and it continues to work and does what he does best. I look, for me, I feel like the only way that Tony wins is by a cut. I don't think that he can sub him. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen. We understand, like, when cuts happen, you get a little more slippery, things slide in a lot faster, okay? Especially in that Darce position. Like, he'll hit that Darce up from any direction. He'll hit it from his guard. He'll hit it from his butt. He'll hit it from anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you're hanging out, if Khabib doesn't put the placement of his head in the right spot, it could be a really, really tough night for him.
Yeah, he hits it from side control.
Yeah, from being elbowed and from being choked.
Yeah.
So he's got all the intangibles to become world champion. He's already a former interim champion, which I still considered him. He was the champion at the time. I have nothing bad to say about him. I just think that physically strong, he is not. And I'm not knocking him. I'm just simply saying, strength-wise, he is not. But Joe, here, I want to shake my hand. His hands will go around yours probably twice.
Just bricks.
He's got such long fingers. That's what threw me off. Honestly, when I shook his hand at the weigh-ins, his fingers wrapped all the way around my hand, almost engulfed my whole hand. I was like, oh shit, you got really big hands.
Well, that makes the power.
No, not just that, but when there was a moment there where he had wrist control. So when I got into his guard, he grabbed my wrist and I couldn't get my arm free. And then in the meantime, he's elbowing me in my head. And I got 2 Mercedes-Benz cuts right here on the front of my forehead. Okay? So it was like right there. And then he cut me with the good elbow when I stepped in on one. But the 2 Mercedes-Benz cuts were from him with wrist control and him elbowing me from his guard. If Khabib gets put into his guard, it could end up being a tough fight because cuts happen, and when they do happen and you have a shaved head, there's nothing stopping them from flowing right into your eyes.
Right.
Your eyebrows are not going to stop all that blood. And if you recall, remember the Joe Daddy Stevenson and Eads Edwards fights? That shit was just squirting out. You know, there's an Adam Piccolotti fight as well in Bellator where he had cut the guy on the top of the head and literally he gets a rear naked and chokes him and you see blood go everywhere. Yep. And I'm just thinking to myself, in a fight where you shave your head or your hair's always really short, or it's not going to look good to the judges or to the doctor and things like that. And like Shaw brought this up. This fight's in New York.
Yes.
With that fucking lame ass doctor that stopped the Nick Diaz fight. The lame ass doctor. Oh, he's got a vagina on his eye. No one gives a shit. Like the guy can still fight.
Right.
You know, they're being extra cautious in New York right now because it's a relatively new sport, is what I believe.
I believe too.
You know, and then I believe they had that death of that boxer that was there. So then they're just trying to make sure, which I understand, like the safety of the fighters is most important.
Yeah, I would prefer that being in Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would prefer in Vegas. They'll let shit go. Although, you know, I think they did check Macy Barber's knee. That was kind of crazy.
I thought that was pretty crazy. I thought it was kind of awesome though, because I've done that a lot with my therapist. My therapist was like, yeah, you have like probably a grade 2 sprain, but you'll be all right. Like you can tell if it's torn, your shit's flopping around.
But didn't you think it was weird that they were checking her? Like, remember Thiago Santos?
Yeah.
Thiago Santos has 0 knees.
Yeah.
His knees were gone, and he's still swinging haymakers at John Jones.
Because he's a fucking savage. He's a savage.
That guy's a savage.
I mean, look, at that fight, I could see it going to John, but I could also see it going to Santos. And
Real close.
I was like, man, if you hadn't got hurt, how would this fight have been different?
Right.
You are good, really good.
He's fucking dangerous as shit, and that power is undeniable.
No.
It seemed like he didn't get hurt from anything. It was like a weird thing, right? Like he threw a punch and his leg just kind of buckled. Yeah,
but you got to remember though. Remember Patrick Cote did the same thing with Anderson Silva.
Yes.
You know, T Wood, I think, or not T Wood. Carlos Condit with T Wood. Same thing. He didn't really do anything. It's like kind of one of those step backs.
Well, Carlos with Tyron though was a leg kick. Remember?
Yeah. What did he tore it though? Was it from the leg kick or was it just when he?
Sometimes, like you know how it is. Like sometimes you were a little fucked up going into the fight, and sometimes you just get a little bit of an injury in the fight, and then all of a sudden a big leg kick. Yeah. But Tyron leg kicked him, and then his knee blew out.
Bug out.
Tyron's legs are like 2.
Yeah, I know. I've trained with him a couple times.
He's fucking legs.
For someone who is built like a Greek god, he's fucking one of the nicest guys.
He's a great guy.
Such a great guy.
I love how smart he is too in terms of his full career. Like he's getting his he dips his hands in a bunch of different things. Right? He's rapping. He's doing a lot of TMZ stuff. He's constantly putting up YouTube content. He's on top of shit.
So to touch on. I was talking with, like I said, I keep bringing up John because John and I talk about it a lot, obviously. Yeah. But is fighters after fighting? You need to have a game plan. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's going to all work, okay, guys? I mean, like, that's the thing is, I own a fitness gym, I own a martial arts gym, and I do a podcast, and I own a clothing line. I do all these things. But all of them supplement a little bit of the income that I was making for fighting. I think the problem is fighters need to get into dabbling into other things. Look, whether it's a podcast or whether it's owning a gym or anything, I would recommend no gym businesses. I would recommend that.
Is it rough?
It's rough. I mean, it's the constant hustle. I've got 15 employees, so it's a lot of work. When you've got that many employees, it's like you have trainers that work for you, you have front desk people that work for you. I've got jiu-jitsu coaches that help work and help teach when I'm not there. Like they're there now while I'm here with you. And so it's and I owe a lot to them. Like they run the fort while I'm gone.
It's just a lot to manage.
It's a lot to manage. Like I get back to the room, later today, and I'm get on the computer, look at my computer, look at my cameras, like how you have here. You see, hey, everything's okay, everything's going good. Plenty of kids came to class today. I've got like over 100 kids in my martial arts gym.
That's awesome.
A jiu-jitsu base and wrestling. I have jiu-jitsu, got DC's wrestling program in there. But all that gym business is hard. It's a constant hustle. But you have to remember to ebb and flow. So Summers are slow because it's indoors. No one really wants to train during the summer. Everyone's like, I want to go to the beach. I want to go run up the beach. I want to go muscle beach and lift. Like those are the things that people want to go hiking, camping. That's the fitness side of it. The jiu-jitsu part of it, like sure, the jiu-jitsu nerds, they're in there. They're going to be there no matter what. Kickboxers, anything like that, they take the vacation because they want to be outside. Gym business is extremely hard. During the summer, you're slow. September, October, you pick back up. Holidays, you're slow. New Year's, you're back to getting busy because New Year's resolutions. Y'all want to be skinny up until May, okay? when it's Memorial Weekend and you're all in Vegas, at the pool parties. That's their game plan. So you just got to learn to manage your money and budget your money and figure out things to supplement the income during the times that are slow. That's really what it comes down to.
It is a really smart thing for fighters. I mean, Brendan obviously has struck pay dirt with the fighter and the kid and below the belt and all the other shit that he does. And in a lot of ways, and also stand-up, in a lot of ways, he's opened up the door for a lot of fighters to follow that model. And a lot of guys are doing podcasts now because of that. I mean, Mike Bisping has a really good podcast with Luis Gomez. And, there's a lot of other fighters that are getting involved in setting up similar things too. But I think that's really important to say that they need some, like you can't fight forever. It's not possible. So there's got to be something that you're going to do for the rest of your life to make an income. And when you're focused singularly on one thing, being the best fighter that you can be, it's very difficult to even imagine a future without fighting for a lot of these guys.
So this is the advice that I gave myself. So my last fight was against Patricky Pitbull, which is Patricio's brother. And, I lost. And when I lost, I kept going to the gym after. And when I kept going to the gym and I was thinking to myself, you're 40 years old, what are you going to, what's next? You're going to fight again. And when the reality set in that, if you want to do something else, your new life is going to cost you your old one. You have to have that mentality because I can't keep going to the gym, wasting 4 or 5 hours a day at the gym and still try to start another career.
Right.
You've got to leave that behind. Whatever it is you're doing, in fighting, if you're going to move and do something else, then you need to leave it behind.
You
Move
have
on
to
to
approach
doing
it with the same intensity that you approach your fighting career.
And the problem is fighters don't do that. Fighters that leave the sport or are going to retire, they're done fighting, they don't do that. They keep hanging on to, I'm going to go to the gym every day, see all the boys. I'm going to go to the gym every day and hit mitts with my trainer. Why? Get established first and another job. Okay, start making that income. Now, make that your hobby. Go and hit mitts with your coach again. Your coach is going to love you. You're still going to be there. If I call up Javier tomorrow, if he's in town, hey, I want to hit mitts tomorrow at, say, 6:30. All right, let me move some guys around for you. I only got about 5 minutes in me, on the mitts. But, he'll make some adjustments for you.
Yeah.
Those guys will be there. Those coaches will always be there for you. Go back to it. I can't give any better advice than your new life is going to cost your old one. Let it go. It's okay.
Yeah.
Move on. But give the same energy and enthusiasm to your new job or whatever it is you want to do that you did to fighting, and you're going to be great.
Well, you have a very intelligent approach about it, but for a lot of guys, it's really hard because fighting is their identity. Yeah. It's everything. It's who they are, and also the highs of competition, the highs of victory. They're always chasing that, and then when life gets dull outside of the cage, there's this feeling like maybe I got one more in me. Maybe I got one more.
I think that's a social media play, though. That's what it is. They they're in love with the likes. That's what it is. Maybe just scrolling on and get the likes. Let me see the hearts.
But besides social media, it's been something that fighters have done throughout history, way before social media. Sugar Ray Leonard did it. Remember when he got knocked out by Hector Camacho?
Yeah.
And Terry Norris, and when you're like, Ray, get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it with Roy Jones.
Yeah.
It's sad. And Holyfield did it for years.
Yeah.
It's just. Look, it is hard to get away from something you've done for your whole life, and no matter what it doesn't matter just fighting. It could be the NFL. Look, you see guys playing the NBA guys playing in China, playing in Europe and all these other places because they just love it. They love the competition. They love getting up and down the court. They love whatever it is they're doing. I understand that, but you got to move on.
Yeah.
And I don't mean you got to leave it behind. You just got to come back to it later when you're established doing something else.
You got to find the next stage of your life, the next
hardest thing, I feel like realistically, the hardest thing is you're trying to find something that supplemented the income that you were making. I was making really good money. Right. Joe, it takes me a whole year now of work of all 4 of these other companies to make what I was making in one fight or a fight and a half. It's but you have to understand that there's a means to an end. Like if I just keep doing what I'm doing, and one day I'll have a man cave. You know what I mean? Like,
well, like look at Renzo. Like Renzo Gracie is a huge school in New York City, makes a shit ton of money, and got there from his career in fighting and jiu-jitsu and figured out how to make more money than he ever made in his entire fighting career every year just doing that.
But he also had to line himself up with great people. That was the other thing. John Danaher is fucking amazing. You go to his class. I went there with Frankie Edgar and some of the other guys that were there. I was like, good God, can I get a little 2x2 space to try the move? Because there were so many damn people there. It was packed. And this class was at like 9:30 or 10:30 in the morning on a Tuesday. I'm like, well, don't you guys have jobs? What the fuck?
There's so many killers that come out of that gym.
It's insane.
Crazy.
And just the approach and how Renzo handles his business. Every time you see Renzo, how is he?
Super friendly. Hugs.
What's up? How are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
Like,
He's the best.
That's what helps generate and drives business. That's the thing that's the other thing I want to tell young fighters or fighters that are thinking about leaving. Be positive, man. You had a great time being an athlete and a fighter. Move on now. When you move on, keep that same positive energy in everything you do. How you doing? Hey, smile when you walk past people. We don't see that enough in some old, bitter fighters. Like, why? Don't be that way. You were fucking great. Don't worry about what goes on. Like, focus on what's next and be positive as you do it. I think everything will be great.
It's hard for guys to accept the new chapter in their life. You know what another parallel is? Hot chicks. When hot chicks get older, like some of them just have a hard time letting it go.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, God damn, you used to be the thing you would walk by and every guy would be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And now you're invisible. And for a lot of women, that's a devastating transition in their life. For like a girl who's an average girl, an average looking girl, it's not as hard. When you get older, you were never a showstopper to begin with, but there's something about showstoppers. It's like, it's just a gift from the universe. A gorgeous girl, it's just a gift. You just got fantastic genetics. It's really all it is. That this facial symmetry, the way your body's built. I mean, there's a lot of girls that are showstoppers. They don't even have to work out. And when they get older, it's like the universe takes that gift away. It's almost worse than having never had it. And for fighters, sometimes it's the same way. Because as you get older and you're living a regular life with a regular job that a lot of people be happy with, you're not happy with it because you remember being a conqueror. You remember being the guy that gets his hand raised and have thousands of people screaming and cheering. You remember the after-fight party. You remember training. You remember walking in the gym and everybody goes, that's the fucking man right there.
Yeah, the sport will be on after you. It was there before you, and it'll be there after you. Like every athlete needs to remember that. And as far as with women, look, women go through the baby fat stage like kids do. They go through the baby fat stage when they're younger. I feel like they haven't fully matured. I feel like when you look, and I want to say women don't hit their prime until that 32 to 36, 37-year-old. You see them, I'm like, God damn.
Then they become a woman.
They become a woman, and they are absolutely beautiful. I'm telling you, you look at Jennifer Aniston when she was like probably in her 30s or early 30s or late 20s. And you see her like when she was that 40 age. Good God, just way different. J-Lo, same thing when she was younger versus they take care of themselves. You're right, but I think a majority of women though between that 32 to 36, 37, that could be their whether it's sexual peak. That's the hot spot. I really believe because look, there was some girls that I knew, some girls that I knew that were ring girls, and when they first started on, they weren't as beautiful as they are now as they've gotten a little bit older. The other thing as well is sometimes though they were pretty with natural looks when they started, and now all of a sudden they've got so much work done they don't even look like the same person. Right. So there's two sides to that. Yeah. Just let your body mature before you go sticking that shit in your face, okay? And I'll bet you're gonna be a lot more. You're gonna be beautiful no matter what. Yeah. You start putting that shit, you look like every other person that's on social media. It drives me insane to see that because it's just you guys all have the same doctor. I can see.
Well, it's also you see girls in their early 20s getting their face shot up. It's
they're not even done. Crazy. Yeah, they're not even done. Their body's not even done growing yet or physically filling out. And I'm thinking, gosh,
they want to fill their cheeks in with those fillers and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a bummer. But yeah, it's But what I like, one of the things that Bellator and the UFC is doing is employing former fighters to do commentary and to do analysis of fights. Bellator does a fantastic job with you guys, and the UFC does it as well. Fighters as commentators, and I think that's a great avenue. I mean, it's and that's something that's going to be around for a long time. And if you're good at it, and you're very good at it, I really enjoy you doing it because you have great insight.
A lot. That means a lot coming from you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're great. But it's such a great thing that they've done, and it's amazing that they hadn't done that before. And now boxing has caught on. I mean, boxing had it with George Foreman and a little bit with Roy Jones Jr., but for the most part, the people that are doing commentary, they were analysts, and you'd have like one fighter, but the guys sitting around the table talking about what they think about these matchups and what they think could go down, like that's very valuable insight to the fans too. It enhances the experience for the fans and provides a future career for fighters.
George Foreman, to me, it was one of my favorites because he had the best line ever when he told Larry Merchant, "You see fighting, you don't know fighting." Yes. And that, to me, just let everyone know I'm going to put you in your place.
Yes.
Like, without actually throwing a punch.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just let me know that the fighters are meant to be in that position. And so when you're saying guys like DC stepping up and doing what he's doing, I think he's amazing.
Yeah. He's fantastic at it.
I love doing what I do, and I got to tell you, I've been definitely blessed. The fact that I owe a big majority of my career to Scott Coker, because these are things that, sure, I had to audition for. I still had to get out there and and do what they asked me to do. When it came down to the audition, you have to be able to nail it. And I was lucky enough that they were like, you're good enough, we'll give you a try. you know? So, but I feel that the reason I think why it worked out so well is situations like this. I had already started a podcast. I was already comfortable being in front of the mic. Yeah. This is one of the knowledges, one of the things that I got from Brendan when I went on his show the first time on Big Brown Breakdown. We talked, I'm like, talk to me about how this whole thing did and how it all started for you. And he goes, Josh, just look at this microphone as if it's a rep. Every time you're in front of this microphone, it's a rep that you're getting for the shows that you're going to do. And so when I get now in front of the microphone and I'm holding it there and I'm talking with Jay Glazer and Chael and whoever else, whatever fighters, one of the hardest things to do is listen to what the hell they're saying. Like when this is why I admire like what you do so well. It's like you're talking to me and I have to listen to you and you're listening to everything I say so you can come back with an answer. Most people already have a question in their head they're going to ask and they don't care what you're going to say.
Yes.
And so when you're talking to a fighter, right, they generally will, for me, I did it like this and I did it like, well, you can't do that.
Well, it's
at
like
that
jiu-jitsu.
moment you got to make it about the fighter.
It's like jiu-jitsu. If you're only thinking about what you want to do to a person, then you're not thinking about what they're going to do to you. You're going to get surprised.
Yep.
You have to flow. And the conversation is like a flow. You have to be able to listen and you got to be able to respond. And if you're not listening, you're just talking at that person, the people at home are going, this is awkward. Yeah. And they don't like it.
Yeah, because now I'm just artificially putting in questions that you weren't even talking about. It just sounds really bad.
Yeah.
So when I had done the audition for Bellator down in Viacom Studios, they had sat me in a silent room. It was like kind of like a room like this with a monitor, and I had to call Ed Ruth's fight. And I already knew that Ed knocked the guy out. It was very awkward. I was like, oh man. And
that's how they auditioned you?
That's how they auditioned me. Like, hey, call this fight. And I was like, oh man, I already know the result. And I was like, yeah, so I think Ed, what he needs to do is set up that right hand and boom, knockout. I was like, yes, I knew I was right. It was like one of those scenarios and situations, but we did that, and then there was some other stuff too where they had like someone, Goldie, do something, and I had to answer questions with him, and there was a lot of things that came along. But that was part of the audition, and then I did a show with Brendan Schaub, the Bellator's show in New York.
Yes.
So it was him and I with Jen Brown at the desk, and the three of us were up there, and that was the first show I'd ever done at a desk ever sitting, and so that was something that I learned a lot from Brendan. I learned a lot from Jen, and I learned a lot from talking with Big John and Goldie and all the guys that were there. Morrow is phenomenal when it comes to me talking with him.
I love that guy.
He's amazing.
He's a great guy.
I've never seen anyone write out. I don't know if you've ever seen his iPad. His iPad has stuff I have no idea how he can visually see it. He types it all up, and the writing is so small that if my normal eye can't read it.
Really?
He's got glasses on, but he'll read it one time, and then he'll recite the whole thing. He's got a photographic memory. Without a doubt, he's got a photographic memory. I kid you not. He'll read it all, And then when we do rehearsals for the shows, he does this walk down where he introduces all of Bellator and like, hey, fans, everything live, like on TV live. And he's not carrying his iPad or his phone or notes or anything. He just recites it. Wow. Word for word, verbatim, like he did in rehearsals every single time. The guy's an animal.
He's a machine.
He's an animal. And I kid you not, he does Showtime, he does WWE, and he does Bellator.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think of all the things he does, and he's just on his... it's... I
love how open he is about mental health issues.
Yep.
About his own struggles and trying to let people know. The bipolar rock and roller he calls himself.
Yeah, I watched that on a plane ride overseas. I think I was going to Milan, and I watched that, and I never had realized the severity of what he would go through before and after shows. Yeah. And until you see that, you don't realize what mentally they go through. Of like, man, you sucked. You did this. You fucked it up. You did, like, he's yelling at himself in the mirror after, like, you knew it should have been this. Like, he misses a word. Yeah. It's like,
yeah, it's a tough job, man. I only did that once, that play-by-play thing, or the play-by-play commentator gig once with Phil Baroni. Me and Phil did it. It was fun. It was fun working with Phil. We had a good time.
Yeah.
But that play-by-play spot is fucking hard, man.
Yes.
That's a different thing.
Well, sometimes you got to take him in and out of commercials. You got to take him in and out of rounds. You've got
traffic. You're running traffic. You're directing everything. It's fucking hard, man. Yeah. It's way harder than color. Color, you just sitting there. And if a fight starts happening and things, you're just describing what's happening. You know what's happening. You know how to talk. Yeah. It's not that hard. But to be able to do that play-by-play shit, like John Anik is a goddamn wizard. John Anik's the best I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody like him. He's so smooth. He's just the right amount of talking, the right amount of laying back. He doesn't ever overstep his bounds in terms of like his knowledge base and what he understands and doesn't. He's got a great sense of humor. Great guy.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when he first came onto the scene with the UFC, I was like, I don't know. But then I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, he's grown on me. Yeah. I actually love listening to him kind of call fights, and I love when his interviews are good. Everything he does is great.
Do you know him as a person?
No, I don't. I've met him like in Hey, How Are You? But I don't know him. I've never hung out with him.
He's fucking amazing.
But everything I've ever heard, DC talks so highly of him. He's like, dude, he's fucking one of the greatest guys. Super nice guy. And so, I in the beginning I was like, but then as he started calling more fights, and and when I started seeing some of the front camera angles that the UFC does for like your guys' reaction, that's when I actually started really liking him. He just he
loves it. He loves it.
And those are things that you want to see from your guys. Those are things that you want to see from people that they love the sport and they're in it balls deep. They're like they want to they want to know the sport. I'm working with a guy right now over in the UK because I handle all the UK series for Bellator. So I call the fights cage side there, and so I work with this guy named Dave Ferrara, and I kid you not, from the first day, we worked together, we meshed, and he was great. And he's like, hey man, I don't know any of the submissions, I don't know this, I don't know that. I said, let me focus on that. You worry about selling, boom, this shit happened,
Right.
And so after we did the very first fight, and he said something about a guillotine or something, and I was like, after the fight, I said, don't say that. I said, he was on his back, it's a rear naked. I was like, so it was just one of those situations. Yeah. But then after that, but he also went to a couple jiu-jitsu gyms and started asking, didn't take class, but just started asking about what submission that was at, what submission, so he could start kind of doing. And he did his research, came back and had known what the guys were doing, how they had won fights, what it was. So and so he's just, ever since we've done a show, he's progressively gotten better and better and better, and he's really good now. I love working with the guy.
It can be a daunting task to step into that world that you don't really understand and you're not a practitioner.
Yep.
And then to be a commentator look, there's one thing about MMA fans, if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, they will come down on you like a ton of bricks. It's hard.
No, it's true.
It can get rough. And they appreciate someone who's genuine. Like, that's one of the things you were saying when you saw his enthusiasm. When Anik, you're looking at the video of him reacting to fights, genuine enthusiasm is appreciated because, there's so many fans and everyone knows how to talk. and everyone knows how to talk about fights, they're like, fuck, I could do that. And so if you're doing it, you're not interested in it, or it's not really your thing, they get mad at you.
No, it's true. Like, you need to make sure that you're as an analyst, I think I had to realize that it's not about you anymore. You're not that guy in the cage.
Right.
Okay? It's about the guys that are in that cage. You got to make them bigger than light. You got to make them feel, not just feel, but I got to sell them to the world.
Yes.
That this guy is the best guy. And so when I have these conversations like with you, and when I'm on my podcast talking about guys like Patricio and Lima and MVP and and Gegard Mousasi, and those guys being as good as UFC and good as ONE FC guys, I'd say it because I mean it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try to push somebody on somebody that I don't believe that in. I just truly think that there's guys all around the promotions, every promotion, that are the best that we just haven't found. There's probably some guy up in the fucking mountains in Dagestan who's the world-class best guy in the world, but he just can't find his way to a paved road.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he doesn't.
Right.
So he's probably the best, but no, he just doesn't know how to get there. It's no different than when we watch if you ever watched American Idol. Hey, how come you're not a star yet? Well, because I don't know how the business works. I don't know how to get in front of people that can make me a star.
Yes.
That goes with with all the fighters too.
Yep.
How do I get in the UFC? I don't know. That's the thing. You got to find a way in. And if they don't know how to get in, then they're stuck living in the woods somewhere and trying to.
And if they don't see that clear path, they might not have the same level of commitment, so they might slack off or find something else to do.
Very true.
It's and we started about this because Brendan was saying that if you're not in the UFC, you're not shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a crazy perspective, because when I look at, like we're talking about Lima, like there are guys out there, like I look at Lima and I go, he might be able to beat everybody. I really believe that. That guy's fucking terrifying. The way he knocked out Michael Venom Page.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, he might be able to beat everybody. To say no, like, come on, man. Watch that guy fight. Look at his fucking power. Look at the way he knocked out Koreshkov. Look at those fucking leg kicks, man. He tortures guys with those leg kicks. He's so powerful.
Here's the thing, though. Let's not forget, when Roy left, he was still one of the top guys in the UFC. Okay, and just because and look, I'm not trying to like dig or dog, but what Dana does very well is he develops the narrative, and then the media runs with that narrative very well. So they before they even put pen to paper, Dana's already wrote the story for them, because he's already gave them the narrative. Like you and I were talking about it earlier with Connor. Yeah, he made Donald Cerrone. He caused him to lose in 40 seconds. Dana came out and said, it's not that Cowboy's bad. It's that Connor looked that good. That narrative was written for all the media to go ahead and follow, because that's before they wrote pen to paper. That's what the narrative was. He wrote the narrative for them. I just feel that, like, look, there's guys out there that can cross boards all across. Lima's one of them. Patricio's one of them. There's guys, I think, at 135 pounds that we have that can do it as well. We've got tons of guys, not just us, even in one. But I would put our guys, and I'm just saying, I say our, but I just say because I came from Strikeforce, and we got no respect, man. It was so hard, Joe.
Till the Strikeforce guys integrated with the UFC, and we realized like how many of them became champions, Luke Rockhold, and how many of them were world-class guys, Mousasi. There's so many guys, Tim Kennedy. Yeah. So many guys came over from Strikeforce.
You have to remember this, is that I've been getting criticized for years, not criticized. I've been told for years that I was never a top guy for years because I was in Strikeforce. Right. And I said, well, I also know what the guys in the UFC are making, and I'm making more in Strikeforce. So I'm going to stay here. Like at the end of the day, to me, it's about making money. Right. Like I'm a prize fighter.
Let's talk about that. Isn't it weird though that like this is the only sport, MMA is the only sport where you have these names of these organizations, and they're more like boxing. Nobody gives a fuck if it's a WBC title or the WBO title. They don't care. They care, is it Deontay Wilder? Is he fighting? I want to see him fight Tyson Fury. I don't give a fuck if it's for the bubblegum title. It doesn't mean anything to me. But for MMA, for some reason, because the promotions become like the NFL or the NBA, it becomes the big thing. We know there's world-class fighters everywhere. It's not like basketball or football where the best guys are definitely playing in the NFL. There's so many different organizations, and I almost feel like fighters are hampered by the names of these promotions. I almost think like we'd all be better off if it was just MMA. You know, to call it the UFC, The problem with that is it's great because everybody knows there's a very high quality to the UFC events. The production value is amazing. There's so much attached to it and so much history. But at the end of the day, it's about MMA fights. That's what it's about. And whether it's in Bellator or ONE FC, it's about how good are these matchups? How good are the fighters? What am I going to see?
Well, I believe it all started when... I believe it all started when credentials were taken away from top MMA media organization or websites and saying, "Hey, if we don't like what you say, you're not going to get a credential to get in." So then they brought in the other media websites or whatever it was, USA Today, whatever it was, other media sites that came in and just said it's all about UFC. It wasn't a sport anymore. It was a UFC brand, and we had the best fighters. And once you took away Sherdog's credentials, all the other people that were doing what other companies at that time had webs, they took those credentials away. Now whoever came in was like, well, shit, if they're going to do it to those big time, MMA websites, why would they would do the same shit to me if I don't toe the line? And that all of a sudden became like fighters now, when you see them, it's all about UFC. It's not about anything that they're doing. Like you as a fighter, I think, look, even though it's an individual sport, and sure, you guys should be pumping your organization, I get it, but you should also be pumping you, because after you're done, the UFC will be fine. You need to worry about building your brand, whatever it is you do to make you big.
Yeah.
And it's I'm all for the organization. The organization does a lot for the fighters. I'm not here to piss on any company or any organization. They need to make sure, though, that they're doing what they can to make as much money as they possibly can. And to go back to the Strikeforce thing, I was making almost double what the guys were making in the top 5 in the UFC at the time. Now, there was a lot of talk about backroom bonuses and this and that, but I was privy to a couple of those back-year bonuses when we got bought out. And I went over there. They were not what I was making on the other side of the rope. So just to give you an example, when I came over, they were like, "Oh, wow, you're making that." They were like, "Well, what do we got to do? We only have one fight left." And I was like, "Well, you got to match or at least beat it, like what I'm making now." And they're like, in the thought process was like, "Where the fuck am I going to go, though, Josh? You're kind of fucking stepping on your own dick here."
Right.
Because
it's tricky, right? Because you can't really negotiate correctly.
No, I couldn't really. Yeah, and that was the thing. I couldn't really negotiate at the time, and I was just like, "Shit, all right, well, let's play this out." So I took the least amount of fights I could possibly take, wondering if Bellator was going to be around long, and if Scott was going to stick with UFC, or if he was going to try to go do his own promotion again. A lot of my relationships come from people that have been around. Coger to me is, I think, one of the best guys, if not the best guy I've ever done business with. I've learned a lot from watching him on how he approaches not just fighters, but the promotion itself. The one thing I admire the most about him is that, like, you don't need to shit on other people like the UFC or ONE to say that my organization's the best. Yeah. He takes that martial arts attitude and approach to a lot of things. And I've never heard him say bad things about Dana White. Never in a private conversation. And I play golf with him a lot. I have lunch with him a lot. I've never once heard him say anything bad about Dana White or anybody else at the UFC. That's not his approach. His approach is, I'm going to have fights. I'm going to try to make my guys that are fighters as much money as I can. And my organization is going to do something that we're going to do, and let them do what they're going to do.
I appreciate that. Yeah, he's a very universally loved guy. I would really like cross-promotion fights. I really would.
Bellator just did it with Ryzen.
Yeah.
And what's your take on that?
I think it'd be good for everybody. Like I said, I'm obsessed with Douglas Lima fighting at 170 pounds.
Have you not seen Patricio fight?
Yes. I'm obsessed with Patricio too. But I feel like right now 145 in the UFC is so fucking talent stacked.
Yes.
I'm comfortable with some of these matchups that I want to see. I really am interested in seeing a rematch between Volkanovski and Max Holloway.
Yeah.
I think Max Holloway, with just a few adjustments, checking those leg kicks and maybe a little bit more movement, I think he can win that fight. But I think Volkanovski, with a few adjustments, might be able to put on an even better performance. And now that he's beaten the GOAT featherweight, who knows? A lot of guys, you don't really see what they're capable of until they win the title, and then you see the confidence take over. I think cross-promotion with all the champions would be fantastic. Look, I'm a terrible business person.
Obviously.
I'd promote everybody. I'd be like, fuck yeah, Bellator, let's be friends. I'll blow you guys up too. I don't think the way the UFC does is sort of an isolationist perspective. Like when Fedor was a champion, they would get bummed out that I kept mentioning him. When Fedor was over in Pride. And I was like, you got to take into consideration Fedor Emelianenko. I mean, he might be the best fucking heavyweight alive. And there was a lot of guys over there that were fucking phenomenal fighters, and we absorbed a few of them, and there was some problems with that. You know, obviously there was problems with the fact that the contracts that they got from Pride, a lot of them weren't real. So, you know, we thought we had Fedor and we didn't. We thought we had a lot of guys. They had to just put him under new contracts. Mark Hunt was a good example. He wrote out his contract. And then there was a problem with supplements. You know, a lot of those guys were on the Mexican juice.
But because it wasn't in the contract. I fought over there and they said we do not test for steroids, like in the contract.
And Ensign Inoue tell me that it was in giant bold print.
Yes, it was. It was. It actually was.
Yeah.
I want to even say it was underlined.
Yeah.
It was like, no, look, so I agree with cross promotion.
Yes.
I want to see that. I 100% want to see that. But I also think, though, too, you got to look out for all promotions. If we're going to cross promote, let's not have champion versus champion. Let's have your number 2 guy versus this number 3 guy. Let's make the best fight.
Here's the thing. Do you think it would hurt the UFC? Because I don't know if it would. I think it would definitely help Bellator, but I don't know. First of all, I hate the name Bellator.
I think everyone did. And honestly, I think everyone did. It was true. I mean, but here's the thing. Like, they'd already spent millions, probably close to over $1 billion in trying to make sure that it was marketed properly back then. When Scott came in, it's like, let's not try to rebrand this. And Scott's brilliant when it comes to doing these type of things. But you notice how he got rid of he made it very simple. The logo is simple. Everything is simple now. And it's easier to say, oh, that's our logo right there. Right. Versus this big word that says, with like I don't even know what it was behind. It was like a Bellator fighter or whatever it was. Yeah, it went away. Gone. Yeah. So, like, look, in all these things, it takes time to get branded.
Do you remember King of the Cage when they used to have the King of the Cage, a giant bodybuilder dude?
Yes.
Who was like the mascot?
Yep.
Remember how strange that was?
Shout out to Terry Trovocock, dude. That guy. Look, he's been around forever.
Still around.
Still doing his thing, though, man. And you got to appreciate guys like that. Because even though he's not getting rich, but he's also making sure that young and up-and-coming fighters have a way to like get their name out there and still fight at a high level.
Well, Bud Brutzman was one of the owners as well. He's a really good friend of mine. Okay. He actually sold him my old house. He lives in my old house. He's a real good friend of mine.
I never met him, I don't think, but
Bud and Terry were partners in that venture. And they used to have this guy who was this enormous fucking bald bodybuilder dude who was the King of the Cage. Yeah. And he was like a mascot.
Yep.
You remember? It was
I do remember.
Strange.
He was always wearing like a dry fit shirt or like a really tight,
jacked. Big old fucking neck, bald guy, huge muscles.
Yep.
But it was so strange. It was like, but he's not the fighter. This is so weird. Like, you have a mascot.
Yeah. Hey, whatever, man. Everyone's got to try something different.
Mascots are weird. It's a fighting mascot. Because remember, the UFC had the dude who was the bald, muscular guy in the logo. Do you remember that?
Was that you?
No, he was a lot bigger than me. It was more like Boss Rutan. It looked like Boss Rutan. Do you remember the early days of the UFC? The logo had this guy who was this bald jack dude. Yeah. And that was like a part of the UFC logo, was some bald dude.
Yeah, I do remember that.
It was weird. And it looked like Boss. Like when Boss won the title, I was like, is this destined for you? Yeah. Like, look at this. It was real weird. There it is. Look at the fucking old logo.
Yeah, that's true.
How weird is that? No one like that ever won the title up until Boss.
But that's like, so when Scott came in, he changed the logo to make it simple, like basically what Dana and Lorenzo and those guys did. Basically made it simple like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for the sport. We'll see. Like, look, the name itself was like, hey, do we want to rebrand this? No, you don't want to waste all the money you did trying to rebrand a new organization. Right. That's just too hard. And at the end of the day, it's, the execs talk and they're like, hey, let's just try and make some changes, make it simple, make everyone just fall in love with us all over again, but, for a different reason. The other thing, too, even though we are doing a tournament format for our fights, we're not doing them every, like Bellator before was doing them every Friday, different weight class, and I never paid attention because it was just too hectic to try and keep up. Now you have big fights scheduled, every, once a month, with the tournament fighters. So, like this weekend we have Cyborg fighting Julia Budd for the title, which is good fight. Phenomenal,
very
man.
Underlooked fight. Yeah, Julia Budd's a monster.
She's an animal, and I mean, and it's funny because everyone just keeps overlooking her, and
she's so jacked.
And she's not only is she jacked, her wrestling's gotten a lot better. And I need to remind you guys, her only 2 losses have been to Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey when Ronda Rousey was at the top of her game. Now, those 2 losses, though, were extremely early in her career. She's been on a tear ever since then, and she's been doing phenomenal. Again, talking with John, him and I have talked, it's her confidence. Her confidence needs to be at a different level.
Look at the fucking guns on that chick. Jesus Christ.
Her striking, I think, is better than Cyborg.
Really?
Yes, I think it's better.
Really?
Her striking's better than Cyborg.
Dude, that's a bold statement.
Can she take a shot from Cyborg? Who knows? But I think there's a lot to be said. Like, Cyborg doesn't throw the straightest punches in the world.
Right.
You know, she throws a lot of hooks. So if Julia can pressure to the fence, get inside the clinch, make her get in that dirty boxing, get rid of those loopy punches, and be inside that pocket right there, then I think she's got a good chance.
Well, after Cyborg got flatlined by Amanda Nunes, the whole game just changed. I mean, everything changed. You know,
it threw everybody off.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, Nunes has fucking hammers. That lady throws hammers. It's crazy. It's crazy how fucking badass she is.
I look at it, though, too, that Cyborg had been undefeated for so long, hadn't lost in so long, that she's just like, I'm just going to walk through this chick. And it just cost her. I think her confidence was that none of these girls can hurt me. I could beat her, you know. And when she got hit, I'm going to hit you back. She was thinking she was going to impose her will like she did against everyone else.
Right.
Okay. And she's going to try to do the same thing to Julia Budd.
Right.
And it's a matter of how Julia Budd responds. And we're going to know, I think, in that first round, whether Julia is going to rise to the occasion or if she's going to step back and let Cyborg dictate the pace like a lot of other girls have.
Right.
I think with Amanda, when she pushed Amanda back, Amanda hit her and Cyborg got rocked and Amanda pressed forward and she thought she was going to hit her back and it became this exchange. It was a very sloppy fight, I think, from both sides, but Amanda has big dogs and was able to land the clean, good punches.
And timing. Her timing is fantastic.
What she did very well in that fight was that she made sure that she didn't blow her wad in wasteless punches. She was picking and choosing her shots. So she was making sure that they were landing versus just throwing, you know, aimlessly and not landing. You see that a lot of times. People get rocked and the guy just comes and he smothers himself so much that nothing lands and the guy recovers and you're back to fighting.
Yeah. When I knew that Amanda Nunes was a fucking dangerous fighter was, first of all, the first round went well. You know, there's a lot of fights where you saw it. You know, you started to see it with Kat Zingano. The first round, she almost had Kat Zingano out, but then she faded, and then she got put away later in the fight, which just shows how tough Kat Zingano is.
Yes.
Kat Zingano's a fucking savage.
She's at Bellator now.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
I'm very happy to see her over there. But when Amanda Nunes beat the fuck out of Misha Tate and then strangled her, I was like, oh, god damn.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And then when the Raquel Pennington fight's an underlooked fight because Raquel Pennington is as fucking tough as they come. That lady impresses the shit out of me. And the fact that she was able to stop her and beat her down before she stopped her. You know, you realize she was on another level at that point in time. But still, in the Cyborg fight, I had questions. I was like, is she going to be... Look what she did to Holly Holm. Cyborg just bullied Holly Holm.
Yep.
She was just on top of her, beating her down, and Holly is a phenomenal striker.
Yes. And
I was like, man, but the difference is Amanda is her hands. Yeah. Holly... you know, has good power in her hands, excellent timing, good counters, but Amanda has like legit one-shot knockout power.
Yeah, I agree. I just would have liked to have seen them do a second fight because I think that Cyborg would have fought a smarter fight, and it would have been a different outcome.
She would have made She would have made the adjustments.
Yeah, she would have made the adjustments, not just made the adjustments, but we saw with Jermaine Duranami when Jermaine fought her, that Amanda, as the fight goes on, she's not the same fighter.
Why do you think that she decided to move over to Bellator? Why do you think she didn't pursue the rematch?
Oh, you know the answer to that. Come on, Joe.
She didn't like Dana?
You can't. I think the comments, to being treated like that, you know, certain ways, people talking behind her back, saying, you know, calling her, you know, a man, whatever it was. There's not just that, but then also too a little bit of I think some of the mistreatment in that whole thing. The other thing as well, let's not all that stuff aside, she's got a relationship with Scott Coker. She had it from Strikeforce, and they've always got along. He's always amped her, and you got to remember, he's the one that first put women's MMA on the big stage. You know, her and Gina Carano were the ones that made women's MMA that next level of what it could become.
There was something that happened between them where the UFC was like, we're getting out of the Cyborg business. I'm trying to remember what it was. I don't remember what happened, but there was some sort of a dispute that they had.
Was it before? I think it was before the Amanda Nunes fight.
No. they put out a video. Cyborg's boyfriend put out a video where she put words in Dana White's mouth. And they were fake.
Yep.
They mistranslated it on purpose, willfully, and then she had to apologize for it. And then the UFC was like, "Get the fuck out of here! You can't do that."
Yeah.
And that's when they released her.
But that wasn't her, right?
That's
that was
her boyfriend.
Her boyfriend and her management, I think, or something like that.
Well, her boyfriend is her manager.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what it was.
So
that's why she got out of the business. That's why the UFC got done with the Cyborg.
But here's the thing: is that when she was with she hadn't lost in what? 15 years or some shit like that.
Since Gina Carano, well, before the Gina Carano fight, her first fight.
It was her very first fight she lost.
Yeah.
But so that first fight, she hadn't lost since then. It's been what, close to 15 years.
Yeah.
And to say that like now all of a sudden, because she had one loss after Amanda Nunes, when she lost to Amanda Nunes, that she's done. Like she wants to fight easy fights. She wants to. Julia Budd is not an easy fight for her.
No.
You know, and but we go back to when I was talking about the narrative. The narrative being that Dana shapes the narrative. The narrative is that, look, if you want to fight over there, you're going to have easier fights. And the press jumps on board and the fighters jump on board and it becomes an issue. That's why I feel like we're not seeing cross promotions.
Well, I just think it's a business decision. The UFC doesn't have any vested interest in blowing up Bellator and making them bigger. And Bellator would get bigger along the way. But I think Julia Budd hangs with any 145-pounder in the UFC, and I would like to see her fight in the UFC. I would like to see cross promotion with her as well. I just feel like it's just one of those things where it hampers the fans because the athletes, they're just not going to face each other.
Well, let me go into this. Is we already saw a cross promotion when UFC was basically asking, or I don't want to say begging, but they were trying to force the issue with Chuck Liddell fighting Vanderlei.
Yeah.
And remember that.
But they got fucked over because they actually sent Chuck over there, and then Pride didn't send anybody over here.
Yes. You know, and here's the thing, though. We've already seen with Scott what he says he's going to do, he does. And that's a big reason when I actually had to fight Kawajiri, it was supposed to be, they sent Aoki over when it was Dream. And they sent Aoki over, and Scott was supposed to send Gilbert over afterwards to fight each other. So Aoki fought Gil in Strikeforce. And then after Gil beat him, he was supposed to go over there and fight him in a ring. That didn't happen. So I got a call on like 12 days notice, and Scott's like, can you do this for me? And I was like, I'm literally sitting at the fucking courtside of the Warriors game, eating chicken strips and drinking a beer. And I'm like, let me go home. I'm going to run about 4 or 5 miles, see how I feel, and I'll get back to you. Call him that night at midnight. And he's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I can go. So that's how I took the fight with Kawajiri on like 10 days notice. And just so, look, when people want to talk about how the Japanese do business and what happened with the UFC, I can understand. I can understand why they're hesitant to do cross promotion, because when I actually accepted that fight with 10 days notice, I was supposed to fight Aoki. But when I got there, they changed it to Kawajiri.
Wow, that's a big difference.
That's a big difference. But what they do is one's a wrestler and one's a jiu-jitsu guy, sure. But the other thing too is what they do is they say, hey, here's another amount of money. Here's a check for this if you switch and you take this guy. So it's different, you know. Like
they're so sneaky over there.
I wouldn't even. Yeah, I don't know if it's called sneaky. They really want to. I bet Aoki now is wishing he would have fought me because he got knocked out that night by a kickboxer because they made him fight a kickboxer, and that's what Japan is famous for. Mm-hmm. They really want to put fights together that people don't expect to happen. You know, we saw Hoist fight the big sumo guy, and you know, and. Those are fights that people talk about for they're ones for the ages, man. Look at when Fedor fought that big Hungman Choi. We still to this day talk about those kind of fights, you know.
Even Fedor wouldn't fight Bob Sapp.
Yeah,
in his prime, he's like, get the fuck out of here. Because when Minotauro got fucking pile drived, he was like, no, that's an injury you keep for the rest of your life. And Minotauro's neck is still fucked up to this day.
It doesn't make any sense. Like sure, there's guys that you can fight, but Bob Sapp was one of the first guys that exploded on the scene that had a lot of athleticism.
375 with abs.
Jesus. Yeah, Jesus.
375. Like,
and
people
100% clean.
Yo, as clean as a whistle. Dude, when I met him, like if you stand next to him, you just go, wait. What in the fuck are you? What are you? What is this new type of human being? Yeah. He's so big.
Have you ever talked to him?
Yeah, I've talked to him. Yeah.
He can talk.
Yeah, he can talk.
I was on a bus ride from somewhere in Tokyo to Saitama Arena, and it was like an hour and 20 minutes. He talked the whole way.
Well, he's made an interesting career, right? Like,
Yeah.
he was an enormous superstar in Japan.
Yeah.
Enormous. Like, it's hard for us to understand. Like, they were selling dolls of him and posters, and he was huge. But then he ran afoul with K1. Remember, there was this event where they didn't have a contract for him.
Nope.
He was supposed to fight, and he's like, "Where's the contract?" And they're like, "We'll give you the contract after the fight." He's like, "No. I need a contract.
Yeah.
I need to know what the fuck is happening here." And then he walked out. And when he walked out, they decided they were going to ruin him.
Yeah, it was that night. It was
Yeah.
they were at the venue.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm still willing to fight. Just give me the contract. They never gave him the contract. Yeah, he was telling me that story the whole time. He's like, look, I was there.
Is that the Yakuza? Like, what are they doing over there? How does that work?
I would imagine, yeah.
I
get the vibe that it is a little bit. You know, I don't think much has changed, just to be honest.
That's a power move, you know, to let you know, no, after the fight, we'll give you the contract. Like, what are you talking about, man?
No, he's still like, from what I understand, he's still fighting. He's still making like 60 grand for a minute 20.
Yeah, and he just gets tagged with a little one. He's like, that's a wrap. He swings. He swings until things get weird.
No, he straight up told me, he's like, no, I tell them it's 60 grand and I give you a minute 20. At a minute 21, I'm going down. That's it. He's like, yo, bro, I straight up, and that was one of the conversations on the bus.
That is crazy. I told him at a minute 21, I'm going down.
Yeah.
That is so crazy.
I'm going to try to get him
take
out
any
there.
more damage. When he got his orbital broken by Crow Cop, you remember, he like one of his eyes looks weird now. Like he's got like one eye that's open really wide.
Man.
And it's because of Crow Cop, which is crazy. Like Crow Cop was like 220.
Yeah.
You know, and fucking hit him so hard with a straight left, he fractured his eye socket. Sap was literally more than 100 pounds bigger than him.
Was that with kickboxing gloves on?
Yeah,
kickboxing gloves. Yeah. Just gotta fit it in the right hole. That's all it is.
I think it was kickboxing gloves.
I think it was kickboxing gloves, as I recall it was.
Yeah, because I don't think he took him down. I think it was a kickboxing fight. Well, he beat Ernesto Hoost twice.
Yep.
Which is crazy. And Hoost had him really hurt. He dug shots to the body, fucked his legs up.
Couldn't put in. He was switching his stance.
Yes.
Like got dropped by leg kicks a couple, one or two times or something. Got back up. I was like, that was before he decided the 121 was the limit.
Well, that was when he was 89% steroids.
Oh, man.
His body was so big and so ridiculous. It
just
didn't-
rocked up.
When he fought Minotauro, I remember Eddie Bravo and I were watching it, and they were like, they show Minotauro ready, and they turned to Bob Sapp. You're like, Jesus! His head was here, and then his neck started right where his head crests.
Yep.
Like his neck went all the way to the edge of his shoulders. Like that is the biggest human being I've ever seen in my life.
He goes like just from his ear to his shoulders.
It was just so big.
There's nothing in between.
His fucking shoulders were cartoonish. It was like the big boss in a Mike Tyson Punch-Out, video game. He was so big. And when he picked up Minotauro and pile drived him, was like, oh my God, he's going to kill him.
Yep.
He could kill him.
Everyone, and we're all thinking like, you're not allowed to do that. And they're like, in Japan, they're like, yeah, die.
They don't care. Stomps, head kicks. They don't give a fuck.
Have you ever been there to call? You've been there to call a fight?
UFC.
So have the crowds changed? Like, do the crowds change for the UFC?
A little bit. They're a little more cheery, but they're still very quiet. You know, in between transitions, you hear everything. It's weird because you hear the coaches. You hear like got left leg, get through, pass through. You hear like the fighter can hear it, the opponent can hear it. It's very strange.
Never been to our gym because it's not quiet at all. Like in AKA, when we're training and sparring, guys are like coaching each other. Fuck that guy, get up, don't let him fucking take you down. They're getting on each other. But over there, it's so funny. My first fight over there in Pride, they had switched my opponent like 6 times. I showed up, and then finally the original guy I was supposed to fight was miraculously healthy and ready to fight again. He just shows up to the weigh-ins just jacked and shit.
Oh God.
Yeah. So I ended up fighting him.
Who was it?
I want to say his name was Daisuke Sugie. They call him the Amazon. Real good jiu-jitsu guy. Phenomenal jiu-jitsu guy. And he swung for an armbar on me like in a minute. I fucking almost got it. I was like belly down trying to escape. But had that fight been in any other organization, I probably would have lost. Because I could hear Crazy Bob and Dave Camarillo yelling to me, hey, push the feet off the face. Because my arm was fully extended. He was belly down. I was belly down. And I'm like, and it was, I could hear my elbow just going, and I could just feel, you feel the muscle kind of stretching and tearing a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I just started pushing, and then I could hear them crystal clear. Get the feet off your face. Get the feet off your face. Dave Camarillo was like in such like, can't believe this happened. He almost started walking back to the locker room thinking that I was going to tap because I was trying to reach for the feet. And he's yelling, put the get the feet off your face. So I was able to push and wiggle it out. And when I wiggled it out, I swung around for the knee bar in the perfect position. I was able to get the knee bar, and the fight ended like that. It's like, I don't know, minute 20, minute 30, something like that. So, but it was one of those, one of those things that they do in Japan where
the culture is just so different over there.
It's really
like
quiet.
When someone would pass the guard, everyone would cheer.
Yep.
Yay! I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool.
But it kind of is a little weird when you're, you guys are squared up and you're bouncing around. You can hear from the canvas, the floorboards, and you're all right. It's a little weird,
distracting.
Yeah, you're like, I'd rather hear the crowd.
It's funny. I wonder if you get used to that, and then if you go to fight in the UFC, it must be overwhelming for Japanese guys that are used to fighting over there with that total quiet, and they come to Vegas. It's like just bleed guys with the fucking on the shirt. You see that? You're like, whoa.
And then as they're walking out, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. It's crazy. It's crazy over there.
What a wild fucking sport. It's such a crazy sport when you just think about the evolution of it. I mean, you started your career. You really are a pioneer, but you started your career you're like a second wave guy. Mm-hmm. You're like, there was the first wave where no one knew what the fuck was going on, and then there was a second wave where guys were like complete martial artists that had a specialty background. Yours being initially wrestling, and then you see the third wave guys are the guys who've been like essentially training mixed martial arts since they were children. And that's like what we're seeing
McDonald.
now. Yeah, and Max Holloway as well, and some of these other guys, and. When you see it now and you compare it to like what the UFC was when you first started watching it and first started competing, it's got to blow you away.
Yeah, you know what? It does. It blows me away because, look, I was actually fortunate enough before I started training with Frank Shamrock, and he was kind of like that first guy that kind of...
He was first wave.
Yeah, I mean, Marco Huas was kind of the first wave guy. I would say he was probably the first.
Right.
But I felt like the first guy with the big notoriety, the guy was Frank Shamrock, the guy that kind of like boosted up to there. And he was decent on the feet, wasn't great, good submissions, but great. He elevated the cardio. He was like that first guy that's... You need to be in tip-top shape. There's no more barstool guys winning these fights anymore.
Right.
And he made sure that was clear. Him and Tito were kind of like, you're not just going to get off a barstool and come in here and fucking beat me anymore.
He changed Tito's whole game in that fight.
Well, not just in that game. Yeah. After, I don't know if you know, but after he lost to Frank, he went up and trained with Frank so Frank could teach him how to get in shape and be as in good a shape as Frank was for their fight. So moving forward, Frank was always thinking about himself at that time. I don't know if much has changed. But he basically just said, like, hey, I want to make sure you're not beat for a long time because it continues to make me look good. So he made sure that Tito understood how conditioning worked, and he just trained him in his regimen on how these things. And that's the story.
Where did Frank learn it from?
He learned it from Javier Mendez and Maurice Smith.
Oh, okay. Well, Maurice. Yeah, Maurice always had phenomenal cardio. And Maurice also trained Bob Sapp, too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's such an interesting time where things shifted and guys started to figure out the overall puzzle of mixed martial arts. Mm-hmm. In that sense, Frank Shamrock really was like one of the first really complete guys. Remember when he armbarred Kevin Jackson?
Yep.
The first round in the UFC Japan?
And I can tell you, in that conversation that he had with Javier Mendez, like, man, Javier goes, this guy's really tough. You got to do this. You got to do that. He's like, he's going to take me down. When he takes me down, I'm going to armbar him. Sure as shit. Same thing. He's like, they always put their hands on the mat. They always do this. They always do that. Frank just had this knack at that time. He was so driven at whatever it was that he was doing. It didn't matter. I kid you not. There was moments where I was training with him, and it was to the point where he didn't care. He literally just rolled over, threw up on the mat, went back to training like it never happened. Okay, guys, let's scoot away from it a little bit. Just kept rolling. Like there was never
scoot away from the throw up.
From the throw up, yeah.
Clean it up.
No, he didn't even clean it up. Waited till the round was done. We all scooted all over, trained some more, came back over, and he wiped it off the mat.
Boy, that's distracting.
It's distracting. It's distracting, but at the time it was the focus of like, hey, I'm not done with my round. Let me finish getting this in. I'm out of shape, sure, but I'm not going to get in shape if I keep quitting to stop and do this and pick this up along the way.
Right.
I don't know. I think I like seeing how the sport's evolved. I feel like we have, I think in combat sports, from 170 down, we're phenomenal. From 185 to like 205, even like the talent needs to be questioned a little bit. Sure, there's talented guys, don't get me wrong, but I think the best athletes in our sport are from 170 down. And just because they seem to be the most look, John Jones is an anomaly. Okay, he's just one of those guys just like, look at his brothers. phenomenal athletes. He's a phenomenal athlete.
Fantastic gene pool.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
yeah, right.
3 world-class athletes in the family.
Insane. Yeah. You know, so you have guys like him, you know, and you have other guys that don't look the part but are the part. Gegard Mousasi, same thing. You don't look the part. You see him, you're like, you know, Fedor Emelianenko.
Yep.
Yeah. But guess what? Fucking world beaters.
Were you surprised at the Rampage fight?
No, not at all. No.
I mean, he's still got crazy hand speed.
That's the one thing that Frank Mir, when I talked to him after, he's like, I thought I could hit him. He's like, I grazed him a little bit. I thought I rocked him. He's like, and then he knocked him out going backwards.
Yeah.
You know, the power's still there. Last thing to go. We all know that. The speed is still there.
That's what's crazy is the speed. He's not as durable as he used to be.
No, not at all.
But you can't be.
You know? I mean, what is he, 42, 43 years old? I mean, but the thing is it's still, no matter what, he's fun to watch fight. And
yeah, man. I enjoyed the Rampage fight. I just thought Rampage, first of all, I was sad when I saw Rampage was so heavy.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way he could have trained really hard to be that. It doesn't help you to be that fat.
Well, he was training with TJ Dillashaw's guy, the guy out of the training lab. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of pictures and posts. Yeah, Sal Calavita. They had pictures of him doing the bike in his garage. And I mean, I don't know if it was just a photo op, but
maybe he only did it a couple of times. I don't know.
But look, there's a ton of guys in Bellator, and the guys I would love to see. It doesn't have to be for title fights, because we were talking about cross promotion. It doesn't got to be title fights. Let's not ruin champions.
Right.
Let's put together fights that, like, if we did, think about this, a year-end show every year where we pick. You know, you kind of let the fans pick, or let's say you have a board. So you have a board of people that a year-end show we do, and we say, hey, we'd like to see this guy fight this guy. I would love to see Volkanovski and Patricio. I would love to see Lima versus Usman, but they're both champions. So let's have somebody else fight. Let's see Stephen Thompson and MVP.
Yes.
Like, let's have this conversation. Look, there doesn't need to be champions. There's nothing to lose or risk other than the fans getting to see the best fights that fans want to see. That's the one thing I've always given credit to Coker about, is like, let's see these fights happen.
The problem is, I think the UFC feels like it would benefit Bellator, but it wouldn't benefit the UFC, because the UFC can make many fights for Wonder Boy.
Let me just make an argument to that. There's the one fight with Conor McGregor and Mayweather. This is like other guys. I don't know if you ever heard of him. It's called Floyd Mayweather. Okay, so there's these two guys. They got together for one fight.
Right.
And that fight did what numbers?
Crazy numbers.
Astronomical numbers.
But that was a freak show, right? Because you got a guy, Floyd Mayweather, who's the greatest boxer of all time, right? Undefeated, 49-0 going into that fight. It's a crazy situation.
Yeah.
And Conor's never fought in boxing ever. 0 professional boxing fights against the greatest fighter ever. And you make this gigantic promotion where it's not really going to hurt Conor because it's not really his sport. Yeah. I mean, it's a different animal. It's a different animal.
Joe, the biggest pay-per-view right now for MMA is what? Khabib and Conor, correct? 2.4 million.
Yeah, that would be like the original. The fight to make, that would probably be the biggest rematch as well.
Okay, so but I don't know how much it would be the biggest rematch, only because Conor lost, and he lost pretty convincingly.
Yeah,
so
but
I
after smashing Cowboy like that, I bet you could sell it.
No, I'm not saying you couldn't sell it. I'm just simply saying it may not do 2.4. It may do that, or it may do a little bit less. People have already seen it. They've already seen it wasn't close. So they may not buy it. If Conor was to go and fight somebody else and have a dominant performance against someone like a Justin Gaethje and get him out of there or whatever, or against Usman, then you make that fight and it'll do more numbers. But not off of the 40 seconds we just saw.
Maybe.
You know, and I'm not trying to toe what Stephen A is saying, but like, we didn't see enough to believe that people could say that
we didn't see a fight. We saw a domination.
Yeah, and it's not enough to say that he could stop Khabib's wrestling.
Yes.
That's the only concern. People were going to talk about that.
Yes.
You know, but what I was trying to get at was the conversation with pay-per-views. Is you do a year-end fight or a once-a-year fight, or let's just say we'll say once a year. It's easy to. And you take the fights that fans want to see, or you have a board member of groups from each promotion that say, look, let's put this fight and this fight together, not our champions. And I'll bet you that one card does double or triple what the best pay-per-view ever has done.
I don't think so at all.
I think so. If you say,
I don't think people care that much. I think you care. I think you care, and I care. I don't think people care that much.
You don't think so? I think the buzz and I also think the marketing dollars behind each promotion to help push it, they'll make it bigger than Conor and Khabib than anything.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can make it bigger. What makes a fight bigger is someone who already has a cult of personality behind them, right? Khabib already has this insane following. First of all, the Muslim world's behind him.
I agree.
He's one of the first Muslim fighters ever to win a world title. He's also just this phenomenal freak athlete who fucking mauls everybody, and this unstoppable force against this irresistible object. And then Conor's this incredible enigmatic person who's just so charismatic, and everybody wants to see him fight. And he's got lightning in his left hand. He's got a history of starching people like Jose Aldo and Chad Mendoza. And you look at it and you're like, what is going to happen when these two fight? But you don't have that. I want to see, say, guys like Douglas Lima, but how much does the general public, the casual fan, want to see that? I don't think there's that much of a following. I mean, what is Douglas Lima's Instagram? How many followers does he have on his Instagram? You look at Khabib and Conor. Conor's at like 50 million or something. Khabib's got something similar.
Okay, so my take is you take someone like Islam Makhachev who trains with Khabib nonstop. He's a fucking animal. Savage. And I've seen the two of them go at it.
160,000 followers for one of the best fighters on the planet Earth.
Yep. So, but if you take a guy like Islam...
You better click that follow, bitch. How come you're not following him? Click that follow. Give him 161.
So if you match guys like you say Islam versus Chandler, if you match guys like you match some of the Gegard, because there was a lot of talk because Gegard was winning when he left the UFC, came over to Bellator,
beat Chris Weidman when Chris Weidman was on top of his game.
So you take guys like Gegard, you match them against somebody over in the UFC, and you're taking these top guys, MVP and Stephen Thompson. I think a stacked card like that, given the results from when we're talking about Japan when they do their year-end show, is the number 2 in all of Japan for their TV viewerships. So it's just some astronomical amount of numbers. I would imagine it'd be bigger than what Conor and Khabib did.
I still don't think so. I don't even think it would be close.
I think it would.
I'm glad you're not a promoter. No. You lose a lot of money.
Well, here's the thing, though, is you're not taking into consideration. If we use Mighty Mouse and we use Eddie Alvarez, or we use the guy Timothy Nastyukin, there's marketing dollars behind one. There's marketing dollars behind Bellator. There's marketing dollars behind Ryzen.
You can't make someone famous.
No, but you can also. But you hit all those different markets that you're going to promote.
Once a person is famous, yes, you can promote it, make it a giant thing. But when they're not famous, to make them famous for a promotion, to make the promotion larger, it's not going to happen. The biggest fucking pay-per-view they could ever do with Mighty Mouse was inadequate. No one cared.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the casual fan didn't care. Timothy Nastyukin, they're going to care way less.
Yeah.
Way less.
I'm throwing out names that we're talked about so people understand.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's just one of those things. For the hardcore fan, if everyone was like you or I, it would be 100% of the world would buy the ticket. I mean, it would be something that everybody would want to buy the pay-per-view. But I don't care that much about how successful it would be. What I care about, would it be good for the sport? And would people like you or I, who are hardcore fans, would we want to see that? The answer is yes, 100%. I mean, I do want to see Pitbull versus Volkanovski or versus Max Holloway. I do want to see Lima versus Kamaru Usman. I do want to see these kind of fights. But in the UFC's position, 170 is so goddamn crazy as it is.
Yeah.
What do you do with Masvidal? What do you do with Conor now, right? What do you do with Kobe when he comes back from his jaw healing up? I mean, do they set up a rematch for that fight? Because that was a phenomenal fight between him and Usman.
Yeah.
And boy, did that fucking get everybody hyped up and paid attention. There's so many big fights as it is. Tyron Woodley, he's going to fight Leon Edwards.
That to me is the fight, man.
That's a dangerous fight for both guys.
T. Wood's my boy. Leon he's phenomenal. I've trained with him. Good. I've trained with Wood. They're both extremely fast, both very good. And then now the evolution of Leon Edwards' grappling mixed with his wrestling, what he did to Gunnar Nelson was just nasty. I was like, oh wow, we just decided to up our game all of a sudden.
Yes.
Very impressive.
He's a dark horse in that division. He's one that people are not paying attention to much. And speaking of dark horses, you got Calvin Kattar at 145. He's the fucking dark horse at 145.
Yeah.
When he was putting it on Zabit in that third round, I was like, holy shit, man.
Yep.
If this is a fourth and fifth round, he might stop him. He's that fucking good.
You have guys like Zabit, though, that I feel like they do well, they're doing good. They almost start to believe the hype a little bit. I feel like he took some time, maybe just didn't go back to focusing and training hard. I've done that a couple times in my career. We're like, oh, I'm going to walk through this guy, not a big deal, because you don't know about that person.
Yeah, but after Cater starched Lamas, how the fuck do you think that? He put Lamas's lights out quick.
Yeah, you can also say, though, that like Lamas wasn't what he was when he was making his title run. You know what I mean?
Maybe, but he was still doing really well. You know, I think it's just it's a case of massive amounts of talent in that division.
Yes.
And like trying to figure out who goes where and what goes where.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, you can say that about 35 as well. Like 35 is a crazy talent stacked place too.
Yeah, I mean, like you're like so at 40. Go back at 45. We got this kid named Adam Boric.
Dude, Boric is a monster.
And so
that flying knee, he knocked Pico out with, and he's one of Henry Hoof's guys too.
And he did it again before that. So he's got 2 flying knee knockouts in Bellator, and all the buzz around Henry Hoof's place is that some of the 55-pounders don't want to spar with him and train with him because he's fucking good.
He's fucking
fast,
good.
He's
man.
long, he's lanky, and he's extremely good.
I've seen videos of him training, and I've seen videos of him fighting, and I want to see him fight live. I haven't seen him fight live yet, but
this weekend.
How old is he? He's like 24?
I think he's 26. I think he's 26, yeah.
So he's, entering his prime.
No, for sure. I feel like the prime is 26 to 32. Like that's your 31, 32, somewhere in there. Like when I was training and I felt like I was unstoppable was that 27 to 32 age.
26?
26.
That's
my job, though.
That's
my job.
Good job.
Look,
excellent fighter.
He's phenomenal. Also, 2 people, the guy that's fighting Pedro Cavallo, who trains at SBG with the Carnivals. He's someone's fucking really good as well.
Yes.
And I just look at these guys, and Adam Weichel, Daniel Weichel, he's another guy that's like, he's such a technician. He just doesn't fight the part because people want to see high flying knee knockouts like Adam Boric does, but he's super technical, really good. The 45-pound division is stacked. And then
who is your heavyweight champion now?
Bader.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
he's a duel champ.
Yeah, so he's 205, and he's.
For some reason I felt like he relinquished one of the titles, but no, that's not the case.
No,
at all.
When
he stopped Fedor, I was like, holy shit!
Yeah, quick, man.
He's one of those guys that actually looks better at heavyweight.
He needs to stay there. I don't know why. He's supposed to be fighting coming up. We haven't announced the fight yet. I don't believe he's fighting coming up, and so I wish he would. He's fighting at 205. He weighs like 240.
Walking around.
Why? Yeah, walking around. I'm like, why? Why would you go down?
Weight? Yeah.
I said, not only you're faster, you're a better wrestler than all these guys. And look, I got a lot of respect for Stipe, and him and Stipe are friends, but I think wrestling-wise and fight-wise, he has a good chance to beat Stipe. Only because of his ability with his wrestling, his cardio, and his pace. The speed and everything, I think he could get in on him.
Well, his striking got so much better and so smooth. And, he just got better in the pocket. After, particularly the Lyoto Machida loss, that was a big thing because he came charging in, and Machida caught him in and clipped him with a counter shot and put him away. There were some moments where you're like, man, maybe Bader's time has passed. And then all of a sudden he has this resurgence and starts doing better and better, and then goes on to become, in Bellator, like a fucking demon.
Well, you got to remember that fighting is a confidence thing. As you win one fight, you win another, and you win another. It becomes
getting lean, defending the 205-pound light heavyweight title in April.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how he's fighting. Well, I want to see it. I don't know what the name. He's fighting. I don't know if we announced it yet, though.
Who's there for him?
Who is he looking for?
I didn't see one on or anything.
Who's there for him at heavyweight?
So you've got
Czech Congo.
Yeah, you got Czech. I don't know if they're not going to do the rematch with that because I remember there was like a weird eye poke / like nose and thumb in the nose kind of weird thing. So Czech got out, and I don't know what the deal was. So you got Mitakov. Mitakov was the former champion who was there before, and he had the flu. I want to say he lost to Czech Congo because he had the flu when he fought. So then, he's someone that right now is. I mean, he's phenomenal. That's his only loss. Then that's what got Czech the title shot. So the two of them. Mitakov is someone that scares me with Bader because size-wise, he's bigger than Bader. He's fast. He's got that kind of like Sambo background, and he's good. It
doesn't seem like it seems like it's really hard to get top talent at heavyweight. Top talent at heavyweight, there's always been, in the UFC at least, it's always been the most shallow pool.
Yeah, I feel that way in 185. If you look at even boxing, 185 is one of the most gutted weight classes there are. Occasionally you get the 205 guys. I mean, like I said, John Jones, is an anomaly. You get those type of guys that come in. But I also think that now that the money's gotten better, you're going to start seeing athletes that would have went to football and baseball and basketball, they're going to stop doing that and saying, hey, these guys are making this much money. Let me try and go over there. Now when they're seeing $1 million paydays in organizations like the PFL, you're like, fuck, I can make $1 million? Like, shit, you know?
Right.
And it's just, I think you're going to start seeing some of those athletes that may be a bench warmer in the NFL or maybe a bench warmer in baseball, or like having to go through the D-League process, or like, man, fuck this, I'm going to go make money over there. Look at Greg Hardy, you know, coming over and you know, and having good performances. And
it's such a long road though, man.
It
when
is.
You're just getting into fighting and then trying to go professional with skills that you've acquired from football and basketball. They're not, I mean, you're an athlete, you're a great athlete and fast and strong, but boy, there's so many variables that come into play when you're fighting.
Yeah,
that
but you
just
also
don't have covered.
You got to look at it though as well, is that if you go to an organization like the UFC's done Greg Hardy some favors. You know, they haven't given him top guys, you know, and so when that happens, because he has a name and they're going to be groomed, then why not?
Well, they gave him a tough fight in Volkov.
Yes, they did.
That was a tough fight.
Yes,
man.
it was.
And I was really impressed with him in that fight because Volkov used to be Bellator champion, top of the food chain heavyweight, big, long, tall guy, difficult to fuck with. You know, it's like he knocked out Fabricio Verdum, former heavyweight champion. So, like, Volkov is very skillful. And awkward as hell, man. So tall and long.
Yeah, it's one of those styles, like you have to learn to get past the push kick and the long jab and all those things. And once you do, you rock right into the knees.
Dude, that Derek Lewis KO was so bananas. When Derek Lewis knocked him out, I was like, that is crazy. And then afterwards, he took his shorts off. I go,
my balls are hot. Oh, shit.
Derek Lewis is a national treasure. He is a national treasure, and he has the best fucking Instagram in the game.
And it's so funny. After that happened, I went to his Instagram the next morning and jumped up by like almost 1 million followers. I was like, Joe out here making everyone famous. Jesus. But but it's funny. I was following him before that, and I loved all the things he posts, man. He's so good. He's so
hilarious.
Fun.
He's hilarious. And anytime something fucked up goes down in the world, there's a video of it.
Yeah.
It's on Derek Lewis's Instagram
It's out there. I think he. I don't know if he there was something he posted the other day. It was fucking hilarious. But
he's a man.
He's awesome, man.
He's a man.
I always love at the end when someone like falls 4 stories, lands on their head, and his first quote is, "They're okay though."
Yeah, he's okay.
So he's okay. He's okay. I'm like thinking to myself, the guy's fucking dead.
Oh, so they're gonna do Francis Ngannou and Rosenstrike. That is a crazy fight.
That is. I wasn't impressed with Rosenstrike though. I mean, he's got big power. He's got the power.
I was impressed with his durability against Alistair and his patience and the fact that he landed that haymaker right hook with 15 seconds ago or something.
Nasty,
man.
Oh
my God, that was one of the worst cuts I've ever seen in all my years.
Yeah, people try to relate that shit to Lawler's cut, and I was like, Lawler's cut was like he had a sliver compared to what that was.
His face exploded.
That was nasty.
And the fact that happened with one punch like that is bananas.
Yeah, and what was crazy about it was that it actually happened where his mouthpiece was. And that for that type of power to land and split your mouth like that, your mouthpiece is supposed to stop those things.
Yes. Yeah.
And it didn't. So that was gross. It was nasty.
It was crazy.
I felt bad for him, to be honest.
I was just surprised how he was walking through everything Alistair was hitting with.
Yeah.
I'm like, Alistair's a fucking killer.
Outside of like the cut, I have no sympathy for him. He's married to like a model, so I don't think I give a shit. I'm like, really, dude? You're married to a model? Like, whatever, dude.
The cut healed up so fast. Did you see how quickly it healed?
Yeah, yeah. And there was like no swelling either.
I'm like, what are you made out of?
Yeah.
Well, also you got to look at that guy. Like, he's been knocked out like 30 times or something crazy. Like, how is he? And you hear him talk. He sounds perfect. Mm-hmm. It's nuts.
Probably because he's in love with a model. his model girlfriend talks. I don't know, man.
I don't know either.
It's crazy. He cracks me up though, because there's some things I can't say on that.
Right.
with him though, he's a good guy. I was over in Japan a couple of times when we had fought, and he was there on the same card. And man, he was jacked at that time.
Dude.
Just jacked.
Back when he fought Todd Duffy?
Yeah.
Remember those days?
Yes, I was on that card.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was on that card.
The Brock Lesnar fight's the perfect example. That's Ubering at its finest when he fought Brock Lesnar.
So
look
big.
at that cut. I mean, that's crazy. That's like a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it swelled up. It was fucked up for a couple days.
You got to imagine he probably got a little bit of plastic surgery done to it as well for them to kind of do a little skin graft.
What do they do? I don't think they skin graft it. I think they just stitch the fucking shit out of it. They stitch it inside, they stitch it outside, and if you look at that, that's going to heal real good, man. I mean, that's still pretty fresh.
I had a very similar one. I was wrestling at AKA, and I double-day this guy, and he hit the ground first, and when his head bounced up and hit me in the mouth, I wasn't wearing a mouthpiece, so my tooth came all the way through the front of my lip. And it didn't look that bad, but it looked nasty.
There's something about your mouth heals quick, too.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. I would imagine to defend off against infections.
Yeah. Just,
you know what I mean?
You got to wonder how many more fights a guy like Alistair can endure. I mean, how many times can that guy get stopped? You look at all the times he got stopped in Pride, in K1, and then the UFC. I mean, he's had some of the fucking, just the Ngannou one.
Yeah,
that left hook Ngannou hit him with.
The back of his head hit his spine.
Yeah,
that was nasty. Back of it. It was
flew back.
I thought he died. I was like, this guy's gone.
Rosenstrike and Ngannou is going to be a very fascinating fight because Rosenstrike is he's a real high-level kickboxer. He's excellent Muay Thai, his leg kicks. And I'm wondering if we're going to see more of that in the Ngannou fight since Ngannou is so boxing heavy and power heavy. But Ngannou, the difference is Ngannou hits you once.
Yeah.
He hits guys once and just changes your whole life.
I think guys are gonna. I'm surprised we haven't seen more guys go to the well with the calf kick. Like in the heavyweight division, I haven't seen it a whole lot.
But Junior was hitting Ngannou with it a couple of times early in their fight. Yeah,
I feel like Junior though is a guy that he needs to evolve because he has the miles on him.
Yes,
I mean he hasn't been the same guy since Kane. Since that Kane fight.
No,
he's been good
at
moments, but he's also been bad. You know, but
the second fight with Kane, then the third fight with Kane really did him in.
Yeah, and so he just hasn't been the same. But he's evolving. I think what the smaller guys are doing to exploit the heavier guys that just don't move as much. And I think I feel like that calf kick has changed the game. Well, the very first time I ever saw that thing being used was Masvidal. Mm-hmm. And Masvidal used that against Gilbert Melendez. I think I'm sure he used it before that. But he swept Gil off his feet probably 3 or 4 times in that fight. And I was thinking to myself, wow, there's something to this.
Well, Benson Henderson was the first guy I ever saw do it.
Got it.
Benson was throwing a lot of those back in the day, too.
Heavy kicks.
Yeah, but it's really interesting how much more effective it is now. Like, you're seeing guys take 1 or 2 shots to the lower calf, and then their leg's starting to give out. And it shuts your nerves down, which is what's so weird about it.
Yeah, because that happened to Chandler when he fought Brent Primus.
That's
so
right.
Brent, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's nothing. He'll be all right." I'm like, "No, like your foot doesn't move anymore."
How about Cejudo when he fought Mighty Mouse in the second fight?
I was surprised he was able to get it back though. That's what was nice about that was he was able to get it back. I mean, had I think Mighty Mouse went to it a couple more times, it maybe would have had a different effect on it.
It could have been the end of the fight. Yeah. It's crazy that these moments happen where something changes in the sport and everybody goes, "Oh, let's do that." And then a lot of people start doing it. Like when Anderson knocked out Vitor with that front kick to the face.
Yes.
And everybody's like, "Oh, yeah, you can throw that shit to the face."
Yeah.
And then you saw a lot of it. You saw a lot of guys winning that way.
Which is funny because when you take MMA and people need to remember what it stands for. And people for the longest time were like, "Oh, let's just wrestle and let's do Muay Thai." Mm-hmm. It was, like, "Oh, okay, we'll do a little bit of boxing and some wrestling." They never went outside that box. And then guys like Stephen Thompson and Machida came in. Now you see MVP. But when you see these guys, they're bringing in a different dynamic that works for them. Now, granted, they've been doing it their whole life. So you're not going to be able to adapt everything that they do. Yeah. But you can steal a couple little things from them. I don't know if you recall, but I was like the first guy that did that little... I used to use my heel to your thigh in the clinch against the fence. I did it to Yves Edwards. And Yves like, "You're such an asshole." He's like, "I couldn't walk for a week, because I would just healing him. Boom, boom, boom. And that fight was only in the first round, and so you have things like that. And then BJ Penn said with Matt Serra kept punching him right in the hip bone. Mm-hmm. He's like, and I kid you not, and BJ's like, for almost 2 weeks, I couldn't walk. He's like, I had to limp because he had fucked up my hip.
Wow.
So little things make a big difference. I wonder, when they got rid of that from the guard, remember those kicks to the
kidneys?
To the kidneys. Yeah. They got rid of those. I don't know if they're back now or not.
I don't know why they got rid of those. Yeah. Why is it okay to kick you in the head? It's not okay to kick your kidney?
No idea.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But
isn't it also interesting that the back of the head, the back of the head's illegal, but when you roundhouse kick a guy in the head, a lot of times you're hitting him
your
in the back
foot
of the
wraps
head.
around the back of the head.
But it's not illegal.
Well, explain this one to me.
Right.
It's
down
like
elbow.
that. Yeah,
So
the down
dumb.
elbow is the dumbest
It's
thing
the only
I've
reason
ever.
why John Jones has a loss.
Yeah, it's just one of those things you're just thinking to yourself, this is so stupid.
Well,
Like,
John explained it on the podcast.
Yes.
The fucking commissioners thought that that's how you break bricks, and you can't do that to a person.
yep. And he basically just said, like, and then I guess Lorenzo had said, John, he wanted to fight for it, and John goes, look, let's just leave that one alone. As long as we can still do it from the guard, we can still do it from any other angle. If it has a little bit of an angle this way and a little bit of an angle, that's what's great. Like when I do my podcast with Big John McCarthy, there's things that I don't know. Like people don't realize fighters don't know a lot about the rules. We think we do.
Right.
But let me just tell, I don't like to admit, because John, I don't like to admit that John's right a lot. But there's a lot of things I don't know about the actual rules. And I fought for years, man.
Right.
I mean, Joe Abbott was fighting for almost 23 years.
Also, the rules have morphed a little bit, too. What do you think about the new unified rules? Like the differences between a downed opponent now and things that you can do that you couldn't do before?
But it's not, but they're not, are they finally unified?
Nevada
have they got it?
Nevada only accept, they have a modified version of it. Nevada says you're still a downed opponent if you have one hand down.
See, for me, I feel like, look, for me, I've always thought that you should be able to knee the head when you're on the ground.
Yeah.
Like if I stuff your takedown, I should be able to knee your head right there on all fours.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Especially if you're not against the cage.
Yep.
Like against the cage is the only argument against it because the guy can't move. He's stuck. That's the only thing that I can see an argument for.
Okay, I agree, but then
get out of there.
Yeah, get out of there. You got to move. It's just going to create more action, more excitement to the fight. That's the one thing that I liked about Strikeforce when we were fighting for Strikeforce was that we didn't allow elbows on the ground, and people like them. The reason I didn't like them is that at the time, Sean Shirk was the champ, and it was like there wasn't a lot of movement. It was like here, and he was so small. He was like bam, bam, cut guys, and the fight was stopped, or it was just got all bloody. And for the actual fan at home watching the fight, not all fans like to watch blood.
Right.
And so it's like, I want to see a good fight. I want to see guys getting starched and knocked out.
Right.
But I want to see a good fight. And so I felt like when Strikeforce didn't have elbows, you posture up, it creates more space. Lets the jiu-jitsu guy do his moves as well as try to get back to the feet. Or I can back out and try to go big ground and pound. There's a lot of things that you can, a lot of different variations.
Why would you like knees on the ground but not elbows?
Because cuts, I don't want a fight to be stopped by a cut.
Yeah, I want to see a lot of cuts. If someone's in a north-south position, you're kneeing someone in the face.
They'll be out. They'll be knocked out. That'd be different than a cut.
That's true.
Yeah, I want to see guys. Like I said, I want to see fights end.
Right.
I want to see them end by a knockout. I mean, that's
I would
what people
like them
pay
to be able to use everything.
Yes.
I think knees to the ground, but also elbows. I think everything.
Got it.
Yeah, I just think that, especially the knee to the ground, like it shouldn't be okay that you shoot a takedown and then you're safe.
Yeah.
Because you're on all fours. That seems crazy to me.
Yep.
Like you're not safe. It should be that the wrestler's forced to roll to their back to avoid the knee, to get the fuck away. It doesn't make any sense that you, in the center of the octagon, you wouldn't be able to hold on and knee someone in the head.
Look, I'm a John Fitch, one of my best friends. Okay. But to watch how he fought Rory McDonald, like for the fans' sake, it's not a fun fight to watch. Like you grab the leg and the guy like pushes out and limp legs out, and then you chase him on your hands and knees, and you're fishing for the legs.
Right.
It's just not a fun fight, and also too, it makes us look like we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Right.
And it's like, dude, John, you're way better than that. But at the time, you also don't want to stand with Roy McDonald.
And that all changes if you allow knees to the ground.
Yes, it does.
The whole position, the whole exchange changes.
Yep, you're going to see them start sprawling, knee in the head,
Yeah.
And then the other thing as well. Look, if the wrestler is obviously there are a lot of good wrestlers in the sport, but let's just say the knee misses and he's able to grab the leg. Now he can get the takedown. So there's benefits on both sides. If a guy knees and it lands, the guy can get knocked out. But if he knees and he misses and I grab the leg and I drive into you and take you down, now I'm on top fucking you up. So there's different ways of looking at it. Like when you sprawl, you want to get your hips back, get your legs back. So when that happens, that you've taken yourself out of the equation of really engaging in action.
Yeah.
Once you try to knee me in the head, now you're engaging back into the action where I can grab you and take you down.
Dude, I don't even think there should be a cage. How about that? I think that's the problem. I think we should do a giant basketball court-sized matted area.
You remember there was those like Kumite style fights where they had the mats that were kind of
Frank Shamrock had a
yeah,
thing.
he had that, and then somebody else tried doing it as well.
Well, the World Combat League with Chuck Norris
That's
had a version of
right.
it, and then what do they call it? The fucking Meyerowitz, the guy who started the UFC.
Bob Marowitz.
Yeah.
Meyerowitz.
What is it? The something pit? Fucking weird name. He came up with some weird name for the pit. Maybe it was like something pit fighting championships, and it was curved. Yeah, the whole thing was curved
like that. I mean, I don't know because some guys kind of run a lot as it is. Like the cage kind of
crazy.
Yeah. You know, like
what is this?
This is Boss the karate.
Oh,
combat.
that's right. Boss Rutan's has an interesting thing. Have you seen this?
No.
World Karate Combat League or whatever the fuck it's called. What is it called? Karate Combat?
Yeah.
Just called Karate Combat? Yeah, they have like these karate fights and they fight inside this area, but they have this elevated outside. But this is just stand-up, right? Isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, but it's interesting too because they're wearing pants, but they're throwing low kicks and shit, and they have black belts on. It's like, all right.
I wonder where this is at. This looks like it's somewhere in L.A.
I don't know. Their boss is still doing commentary on that. They're morphing that, changing it. They're trying to evolve it. But
it's Athens, Greece, actually.
That one is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, why not just do Muay Thai? Yeah.
What's your take on the bare knuckle?
Boy, I thought it was a great fucking idea until I watched Chris Lieben. When Chris Lieben came back and his face was busted open, I was like, whoa, that is a big cut. Chris Lieben looked like he got hit with an axe.
Yep.
I think it causes a lot of cuts, man.
I think
it's going to break a lot of hands, too.
Yeah, it's going to definitely break a lot of hands. Oh, man, if it depends if you like having vaginas on your forehead. You know, that's kind of what the look is. You're going for the look there.
It's also like a way where you see guys who really should be done. They get a couple more fights in there.
Yeah, and they're paying pretty well from what I understand.
Is it? What's a good...
I mean, like for some of the guys they were like I said, they're trying to supplement the income they were making before. But if they can take half and still make money for fights that don't go as long.
Hector Lombard's doing it.
Yeah. I mean, Gonzaga did it, right? Against Bigfoot and those guys. Yeah, I mean, Lieben's doing it.
Dakota Meyer is Dakota Cochran, rather. Dakota Meyer. Sorry, Dakota. UFC vet Thiago Alves inks new contract with bare knuckle fighting.
Yeah. I think it's good, but here's the thing. Is that the guys, they don't know the rules.
Right.
The rules are you can grab the head, clinch, and dirty box. You can punch the body. You're taking MMA
kicker.
And you're taking MMA guys though and making them. And they're not shaping their style around the bare knuckle rules that they have.
Yeah.
You can clinch and grab the head and control and uppercut, and those kind of things. And if they did that, I think it'd be more of a real like bare knuckle kind of gypsy style boxing.
Well, Dan Henderson is going to do it.
Oh God.
Yeah, Dan Henderson signed up for it.
Really? I was just with Dan in Hawaii for the Bellator show there, and I didn't say anything about it. We were also at karaoke at 3 a.m. So
how many different bare knuckle organizations are there? There's at least 2, right?
I think there's 2. Yeah.
See if you find the Dan Henderson fight if he's definitely going through with that. But I'm pretty sure they were getting him. Maybe they're trying to get him to fight Lombard, but they have Lombard, they have him, Gonzaga. I don't know if he's going to keep doing it. Chris Lieben, who else?
Well, yeah,
Artem Lobov,
something Knight, right? And then
Jason Knight,
Lobov. Are they fighting again?
Jason Knight's face was falling off his last fight too. The same thing.
What they look like, honestly, when I see when they're gonna all look like. If you pull up a picture of hockey players before they wear masks, that's what they're gonna look like.
Yeah,
and it's not attractive.
It's not.
It's not attractive. And I'm just thinking to myself, no teeth. Like sure you got mouthpieces, but. Are you wearing a top and bottom mouthpiece? And it just depends, man.
Yeah.
I don't. For me, once I realized I wasn't going to be the best and I couldn't win a title, you just got to go. For me, I just had to go on. Now, I'm not knocking the people that they want to keep doing it because they want to make money. If you want to do it to make money, just do it. Have at it. Like this is your gig, man. This is your opportunity to make as much money as you possibly can. I just knew I felt like my whole career I was one of the best guys in my division, and I just wanted. If I couldn't be the best, then I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I appreciate your intelligence and your recognizing, the landscape. Some guys, they just want to keep going, and also it's hard when you don't have paydays. You've managed to figure out a way to keep income coming in through a bunch of different venues.
Yeah.
Some guys don't figure that out, and then they get stuck, and then they have to make a desperate ploy.
If you have a family, you have to think about what's after, and you got to find ways to, You know, and you also got to have someone that's there with you.
Yeah.
Who takes care, like, you know, is willing to like be with you through it all, not just through you when you were making all the money. You know, and that's another thing. I think a lot of fighters attach themselves to the wrong spouse. You know, and and go on, you know, or they want to live that lifestyle at the time, whether it's beach parties or pool parties in Vegas or whatever it is. But when that's done, or when you're not the selfie king anymore with all the fans at the pool parties, what happens when you're actually calling to try and make reservations to get a table versus them calling you and saying, hey, we have a table here for you at the pool. Things change, man. And like, you have to remember that. And so when that changes, what are you going to do after that?
Right.
And it's not going to always be glamorous, but you just got to, I think you just got to come to reality that life, there's a ton of life after fighting. And this is the one, all sports.
Yeah.
You're only, let's just say you play, not all of us are fucking Tom Brady, play till you're 55, you know?
Crazy.
But it's nuts. But you have a whole nother life after. If you, let's just say you live to be 80.
Yes.
You have a whole nother life. Like, like, this is just the fucking beginning. I was listening to Gary V. How do you say his last name? Vaynerchuk, yeah. And for everyone that said, for moments for myself, I was like, man, at 40 years old, what are you going to do? What can you really get yourself into? Like, go become a cop, firefighter. It's like, but it's just the fucking beginning. Right. Like it's just the beginning. I mean, I got really good at fighting in a couple of years. You can be really good at something else in 1 or 2 years.
Yes.
You know, and just fucking make a ton of money.
Yeah. It's almost like the organization should maybe have some sort of seminars for fighters to try to give them some sort of advice or give them some framework to think about how to pursue your life after fighting.
Yeah, I've talked to Chael about this a couple times. I said, man, with Brendan, with Chael, you guys, those two guys, I feel like people can say what they want about Brendan and Chael, but what they've done is they've done things to benefit themselves in a very positive light.
Yeah.
And I love being around people like that, because even in just a casual conversation, you can learn a lot from them. You know, and I have had this, like even with Big John, like when he left being a ref to become an analyst, and it's just like all the, all the stories that I've heard from him, while doing our show, it's so much knowledge that he has from the sport, period. From the way it was started, the way he got brought into it, to the fights that he's called and how it all went down. And I know there's probably two sides to every story, but it's like at least you get to hear certain parts of what happened throughout the sport. And I love hearing, I love absorbing all that, and it's great to be surrounded by people like that.
Yeah, I just it would be nice if there was like a clear path that fighters could take. I mean, and then again, it is nice that Bellator and the UFC are using fighters for analyst roles and things like that. But yeah, fighters have to approach it like this is a whole new world that you're entering into. Approach it the same way you approach fighting. Throw your everything into it if you want to be successful.
It's funny you say that, because I've worked with a lot of people that doing the analyst stuff, and this you already know what I'm gonna say. You already know.
For everybody.
I don't even gotta say it.
It's not for everybody.
The bottom line is guys are gonna show up sometimes and be like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing."
Yeah,
and it's like you gotta be a student of the game.
You really do.
That's
where DC really excels.
Yeah,
DC's awesome at that. So is Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz is awesome at that. They excel.
You have to. So, like with DC, you brought up DC. What D has is he has a guy that does research for him on the backside, and Bellator does that. They have a guy for us as well, and he gets us all the stuff for the prelim fighters. But you got to read it all.
Yeah.
You've got to know who these guys are. You've got to talk about them. You got to be educated when you talk to them. You got to remember, you're trying to make it about them, not about you. That's one. Two is you're trying to make them the most dynamic, the best fighter that's ever stopped in the cage, even though they're on the prelims of the prelims. Okay, it doesn't matter. That guy is the future champion. So you have to find ways to highlight all the things that they do well and make them out to be like they are the best, and they potentially could be the best, just not found yet.
When did you start doing your podcast?
So I started doing it about 3 years ago, but I didn't start with John till about 6 months ago.
Oh, interesting. So you did it up just by yourself?
Yeah. So I had me and there was another guy. His name was Sammy. The two of us did one called Sammy and the Punk, and I was doing that with him. And then I started doing one with John, and then Sammy and I Sammy was basically doing some stuff with his wife and family and stuff. So we just kind of decided to part ways, and I started filming more with John.
And when you guys first started, did you always do it? You said you're doing it through FaceTime, right?
So with John, yeah. So I FaceTime John in, and we talk through FaceTime, and then we
How do you film it through FaceTime?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so
it's so much better than. Have you seen how they do it, Jamie? It's so much better than Skype. When we did one with Edward Snowden, we did it through Google Hangouts, and there's a weird delay. Like they talk, and then there's this weird delay, and then you don't want to talk over them, so it's awkward. Like person to person is the best.
Yeah,
you're right there. You see each other. But FaceTime's fucking pretty close.
No, it was. There's no delay. John just calls in, and then we record it through. I believe we have like an app or a sling. I think it's called Slingshot or something like that.
He was halfway across the world, too.
That's true. Allegedly, we don't even know.
Correct.
He might have been next door.
There might be a little delay with that.
We don't know where he is really.
He's probably in your bathroom in the stall.
Yeah, he's saying he's in Russia.
Crazy, man.
Who knows?
Yeah, so we just FaceTime him in, and then my producer, we call him Podcast Dave. So he does. He basically just he screenshots it and just saves it, and then John also does it on his side. He sends him the video, and then we record the audio, and then John records the audio. So we just he syncs up the audio to both, so it matches.
That's cool.
So we do both, so there is no delay.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent.
It's nice to have a producer. I gotta tell you, I tried doing like the first 10 shows with no producer.
The visuals of the Snowden podcast had no delay, but while you were recording it, there was.
Yeah,
I had to go back and fix it.
Yeah. Shout out to Jamie.
I was gonna say, you
gotta have a producer.
I was telling him before you walked in. I said, "Hey, don't be surprised if I turn to you just because I want to be one of those other, like some of the other guests that just turn and go, hey, Jamie, pull this up."
Yeah, it's a fun thing to say.
Yeah, and he goes, yeah, but you know what? There's moments to do it though. They just never do it at the right time. It's like,
dude, I did a Legion of Skanks podcast, and me and Tony Hinchcliffe and the Legion of Skanks guys, and Jamie wasn't there, and like there was some shit I was trying to look up. I was like, hey, find out if that's true. I'm like, fuck, where's Jamie? And then those guys are like, how do you Google? It just wasn't the same.
It's not.
No.
I swear, I've tried a couple when Podcast Dave wasn't there and Big John and I were trying to film. I was trying to set everything up. I'm like, where do all these cords go? And what buttons do I push? And then so I FaceTime him and he's like walking me through how to set it all up. And then the fucking audio didn't record and we filmed for 2 hours that day. And I was like, I told Dave, I was like, hey, I'm not fucking ever filming again without you. Like when you said you had to do the play-by-play.
Yes, with Baroni.
And you were like, I guess you told Goldie, you're like, I'm never doing this fucking thing again.
Yeah, there you guys are. Yeah, that's the way you guys have it set up. It's very nice. I like it a lot.
Yeah, he's right outside of Nashville or Knoxville, I believe. So he's over there. He moved out there now. He moved out of Vegas and lives over there.
He's in Tennessee?
Yeah, he's in Tennessee.
He went from Simi Valley to Vegas. He was telling me how much he loves Vegas.
No, he loves it there. He lives right on a fucking lake, man.
But what made him move to Tennessee?
His wife. His wife. I mean, they found a beautiful ranch. I want to say his daughter, I think, is out there now or living out there.
Okay.
So, and she was in the military, and so she's out there. But he's amazing. I mean, he's been amazing, man. He's been amazing.
He's a great guy. I mean, you want to talk about a pioneer? He was there from the fucking jump.
So that's the thing. When him and I, it's so funny because my last fight was against Patricky, and I got dropped with a headbutt. John was reffing, and he wasn't in the right position to see it. So then I got hit right after that, got knocked out. So I basically went to California State Athletic Commission and was trying to argue it was no contest. That they said it was a punch and it was a headbutt. Anyways, so I'm just grilling John in the process of fighting this because they have John on speakerphone, and I'm like, I'm telling him, John, did you see it? John, did you do this? John, and he's like texting me, Josh, I'm on your side, man, but like stop yelling at me right now in front of everybody. And I was giving it to him, but then we both started working for Bellator, and I got to tell you, man, we hit it off, and it's just one of those things. We would find ourselves at the bar having a drink after or before the show or after the show or during the week of the fight. And it was like, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And the next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. It's just the two of us. Everyone else is gone. And we're just talking about fights, man. Just talking about guys we'd like to see fight, guys that did fight and how the fight went and just everything. Talking about the beginning of UFC, talking about how he refs certain fights in Japan and just everything. And just like I said, it's nice. I enjoy being around people that are like a walking book of knowledge.
So it's basically organic. You guys were just doing this all the time anyway.
Yep.
They're like, fuck, man, we should record this.
Yep, let's do it. And then, he used to have a podcast. And so his podcast had like 100 or 150,000 subscribers. And I guess he had like he said something on it one day. And I guess Dana told him, hey, you got to get rid of the podcast or we can't use you anymore.
Really?
And so he just was like,
what did he say?
Fuck. He fought it a little bit and then they got back on him and he deleted it.
Wow.
Done. I'm like, dude.
Get rid of the podcast. Fuck.
Yeah. I was like, man. And that was, So that's tough.
Well, that's another argument to go to Bellator, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing it now. So I was at about 7,000 when I started doing it with him 6 months ago. And now I think we're pushing 16,000 subscribers. It's not a lot, but.
Kind of surprised Colby Covington doesn't have a podcast. Right?
Yeah.
How the fuck does he not have one?
But if it's your shtick, do you want to live that shtick on air? Then all of a sudden you become Andrew Dice Clay.
Maybe. Or maybe he gets even more popular.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he's fucking good at it, man. Colby's goddamn good at it.
Let's be real.
Do you know him in person?
No, I do not know him.
Fucking nice guy.
Is he?
Smart as shit. Nice guy. Works like a demon. He's, you don't have that kind of fucking cardio if you're lazy.
I watched his one with Tommy Lauren because Tommy Lauren actually reached out to me. She wanted me to be on the show this week, and then this whole thing with the impeachment thing. She's like, I can't.
You mean Candace Owens?
No, I have not met her.
Yeah, no, but it was Tommy Lauren he did a podcast with? I thought he did a podcast with Candace Owens.
No, he did one with Tommy Lauren.
Oh.
Yeah, he did one with Tommy Lauren.
When he talks about his whole persona, how he created his persona and everything like that.
No, she was asking, Tommy Lauren was asking about, shit, I believe it was
Trump.
Was it Tommy Lauren? I think
Did he do more than one podcast?
No, I don't know if it was a podcast. It was like on a show, like a TV.
Yeah.
I think she did like a 30-minute or an hour long whatever with him. But she was mainly asking about Trump, like what do you like about him, what do you support about him, what do you this, what do you that. There wasn't a whole lot of the persona talk going on.
Dude, those people who love Trump, they love when someone else loves Trump.
And right now, I mean, if he wants to start a podcast, this would be the time for him to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of his shtick right now, you know?
No, you know who else could have a podcast? Masvidal. Masvidal could have a podcast.
Dude, fucking every day in a fucking Versace robe, just chest out, you know? He's got to get the gold medallion, just fucking lay back, you know?
Listen,
I could
man,
just see it.
If I was the man who made the fucking calls, I know they want to do him versus Khabib versus Conor, but Masvidal versus Conor. Masvidal versus Conor would be fucking giant. When they had all the fighters and they put a camera on them at the event, when they put that camera on Masvidal, the pop from the audience was fucking bonkers.
Yep.
He got the biggest pop of the night.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all.
He's a superstar right now.
What people don't realize when he fought KJ Noons in Strikeforce, it was like a coming out party for him. He made KJ look like he had no idea what the fuck he was doing on the feet. I mean, if you look at the after pictures of KJ Noons, his face he looked like the Elephant Man.
He fucked him up, man.
He fucked him up. And just that moment on, he just progressively got better. Sure, he had some ups and downs, but he never turns down fights. Like, he should have never fought Damian Maia. Like, that's not a fight. Like, if you're a stand-up guy with good wrestling, takedown defense, he probably shouldn't have fought him. He should have been like, no, I'll wait. You know, I don't want to fight that guy. You know, but he didn't. He fought the guy. Good fight. You know, he just didn't get the win. But then he just fucking terror, man. Just terror. He's always been good. Always. The weight cut, I think, killed him a little bit when he was trying to get down to 55 because he is a big guy.
Yeah.
Him and Conor is the fight to make. If I'm at home, I haven't seen enough of Conor to show that he belongs in a cage with Khabib yet. But him and Masvidal, if he starches or beats Masvidal, you can't. That'd be the next fight. Would be Khabib and him.
The real question, if he wants to make it to 55 again, it's some guys, especially when they get into their 30s, they just do better when they're not cutting as much weight. And Conor's a thick dude. He's probably walking around $185 or something like that. And for him to get down to 70 is not that hard. For him to get down to 55 is a long, laborious process.
Yeah, Dana said that he only walks around 170.
Really?
Yeah, he said by the time he fights tonight, like when I was watching some of the presser stuff, he's like he'd probably be 167.
I'm 195 and I stand next to Conor. He does not look 170.
Yeah.
He looks thick.
Yeah.
He looks thick. I think he looked like he cut to make 172. When he got on the scale, he was wearing, a bunch of different layers. It was
he was trying to keep his body
shit.
In, yeah.
It was standard shit when someone's cutting. It wasn't like a guy just shows up. Remember when Eve used to weigh in and bring a fucking cheeseburger?
Yeah.
Yeah, Eve didn't really cut.
No.
You know, there's a lot of guys like Frankie Edgar, perfect example.
Yeah.
When he was the 55-pound champ, he didn't cut shit.
No, he was eating.
Yeah.
You know, when Frank Shamrock fought Tito Ortiz, he weighed in with quarters in his pocket.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, because I guess the commission said, like, you guys have to be within 10 pounds.
Wow.
So Frank had to put quarters in his pocket so he could fight Tito. Otherwise, the commission wasn't going to allow it.
That's funny.
So that was hilarious. No, but there's been a lot of guys that, you know, that just don't feel the need to cut weight. You know,
Well,
Khabib's got his...
When they go up, you know, a lot
Yeah.
of times guys just have better performances.
Yeah.
Khabib's had some serious problems making 55.
Yeah, he has. I honestly believe, I don't think he will. I think I would like to see the fight. To me, these are my dream fights. Is I would like to see Patricio and Volkanovski or Patricio and Max. I would love to see that fight.
Love to see that fight too.
I would love to see GSP and Khabib.
Woo!
That to me is the fight, the biggest fight. I think that blows everything away.
That's a big fight.
That's a huge fight. You know, Masvidal and Conor, huge fight.
Yes.
You know, those, like, these are fights that I like. You know,
How
Lima
about
against
GSP and Connor.
GSP and Conor as well. That here's the thing. That fight should have been made before he lost to Khabib. I'm surprised that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised. You know, here's the other thing though. Is it kind of, I think, is hindering. And I think you brought me up on this before, because I had heard through a lot of people in the UFC that they were talking and negotiating, trying to think about ways to bring in 165.
Yes.
And you have too many tweeners. And why do we have a 15-pound gap for the 55 with all the talent that is there?
Preach.
Let's do preach it. Let's do it, man.
Yes.
Let's do 55, 65, 75.
Yes.
Move those guys to 75. Some of those guys like Usman could use a little bit of that.
Oh yeah.
You know,
he's so big.
You know, and then you'll have guys like, I don't know how big Colby is, but Colby to maybe 65 or Colby to 75.
He could do 75 easy.
You know what I mean?
He's a big guy too.
Lima's enormous, dude. Enormous.
Yeah. What does he walk around at?
Got to be 202 to maybe 205.
Yeah. He's a big fella.
He's a big guy.
And no fat.
None
Yeah.
at all. I saw a
No.
picture. He's in somewhere on an island right now, but he just looks shredded right now. I'm like, he's not even in fight camp.
What is next for him?
I think they're waiting to see what's going to go on. From what I understand, they're not going to do the MVP rematch right away. MVP is going to have to fight someone of significance.
Significance. Yeah, he got some shit for his last opponent, right?
Yeah, but look, you have to. His last two opponents. The guy that he fought in Japan, it was a last minute replacement because Benson Henderson got hurt. So when Ben got taken off the card against Chandler, Japan was like, look, we need somebody else to step up. You know, we need another talented guy on there because now you're supplementing him with somebody else.
Right.
Benson, we need another big name. So they brought in MVP and fought, you know, one of the Japanese guys. And that he stepped up on short notice to take that fight. I tip my hat to him. And he still made him look bad, finished him out.
Yeah.
The couple fights before that, look, these guys are asking for it, but stylistic and not stylistically, but his fight in Italy, that guy, was it Italy? No, it was London. That guy was a last minute replacement also, and that guy was 13-1.
Right.
So,
but he's just so awkward. His style's so difficult to deal with. You know, hands down low and that karate blitz style. Did you ever see when he fought Raymond Daniels in point fighting?
No, I did not. I saw him fight Alfie Davis. That was a good fight too.
Dude, there's something to that point fighting style that really can apply to MMA if they learn all the other stuff. Because that ability to blitz, to jump in and jump out and not get hit, and there's a lot of those guys that are fucking masters at that.
That's my next dream fight. Let's see those guys fight MMA.
Yeah.
Like you have Raymond Daniels and you have MVP. I mean,
I don't know if Raymond Daniels is even interested in MMA. I don't know if he does any.
He's fighting this weekend.
Raymond Daniels
in
fighting
Bellator.
MMA?
He's fighting MMA.
Has he fought MMA before?
Jamie, I'm going to call on you right now. Buddy. He was on ESPN for one of the best knockouts last year in history.
In MMA?
Yeah, he did a 920 spin, came back through with a punch, and dropped the guy. I called the fight.
I didn't even know if that was MMA.
That was him. I called the fight, and it was in Birmingham.
That 920 spinning punch. Why did I think that was kickboxing?
No, that was in. He dropped him with a side kick. The guy got up. He jumped, spun like, I don't know, some astronomical amount of times.
When I see him fight, my stupid brain immediately goes kickboxing.
Yeah.
How many MMA fights has he had?
I want to say he's got 2. He's got 2. This will be his 3rd.
So, like Joe Schilling has decided to abandon the kickboxing aspect and move over. See, the only thing that bothers me with that is, there he is, 1-1-0.
Yeah,
in
so
MMA. Yeah, January 25th, he's fighting in Inglewood next week.
Yeah, he's on our card with Cyborg.
That's not even next week. That's 3 days.
Saturday.
Oh, beautiful. And who's he fighting? Jason King?
Yep.
Okay. That's cool. So, but how old is Raymond now?
I want to say he's 42. 40, huh? Oh, sorry.
39.
I let us down.
He's just decided to, at this point, make it into MMA. Look, man, on the feet, good fucking luck. Good luck even getting close to that guy. He's got a weird style.
He's always... Sorry.
Is my phone going off?
Oh, I thought that was you.
He's got a weird style, that point fighting style, and then the successful transition from point fighting to kickboxing. He was a phenomenal kickboxer. And then go from kickboxing to MMA. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think when guys that feel like they've hit the top at whatever they're doing and there's nowhere else to go, let's go wherever we can to make as much money as we can. He's always had a relationship with Scott Coker. That's the other thing. A lot of what you see from the guys, like Gegard came back to Coker, Cyborg's coming back to Coker, I went back. There's a lot of guys that had fought in Strikeforce when they were relatively new. There was a lot of talk that, if Kane never left, that he was going to potentially go back to, or he was going to go to Coker as well. If he was able to leave, yeah. Because he had his first fight was in Strikeforce, and he had a relationship with them.
But when Kane says his back's all fucked up, and I'm sure it is, but then you see him do the lucha libre, jumps up and scissors this guy's head and does fucking flips. Like, hey, how are you doing that?
Which is super impressive for a guy who's 245, 250, right? I swear to God, I never thought I'd see him jump that high.
Well, he must love that shit, because if he can do those moves, that means he's been working on this.
He's one of those guys that his athleticism is just overlooked all the time because of the way he looks, his physical body, his physical appearance. Yeah, exactly. But you have to admit, Fedor's probably one of the most athletic heavyweights I've seen, and the same thing with Kane. People don't underestimate him because of their body style.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like show muscles versus go muscles. But with Kane, like, his fucking endurance was terrifying. His endurance for a heavyweight just didn't even make sense.
I don't know if there's some truth behind this, but they were talking about how guys that are normally barrel-chested, bigger lungs, whatever, but they normally have a lot more cardio. And it seemed to be like most of the guys that I had seen, like, they have extremely good cardio. Look at Keith Jardine, same thing. Remember him? And then Kane. And I've seen guys with big barrel chests that have good. Think about Junior Dos Santos. Yeah. Look at him. He's got really good cardio for someone who, that pace him and Kane fought at, that's insane for heavyweights. Insane. If Kane didn't have that type of pace, I mean, it could have been a different fight.
It would have been a different fight. But Kane's pace just was superhuman. It didn't make sense. But it's also like those guys that have that kind of pace are never one-shot knockout artists. You notice that? No. Like those guys, they can put that pace. It's like, that's one of the more interesting things about the sport. There's all these trade-offs. It's like, you want to have that super one-shot knockout power? Well, then you're not going to be able to do it very often. You blow your gas out. It's like having a big V8 engine. You stomp on the gas, it drains that tank.
It's true, yeah. Like you see it though with like explosive guys, right? Like Connor. It seems like in the 5-round fights he struggles a little bit, like in that 4th and 5th round. It's not the same pace he had in 1s, 2, and sometimes into 3 in the 3rd round.
Yeah, he comes out hot.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that'll all go away if he stays at 170. But then you're fighting guys that are 205.
You're fighting guys like Usman.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's extremely talented, extremely good. But I mean, like, and I've kind of on the Brendan way. Is that, like, to me, I'm a Conor nut rider, man. I think I like what he's done in the sport. I don't see him beating Khabib, and I've had this conversation with Brendan a lot. Ever? I don't see him beating him ever, like ever. And
what does Brendan think?
Well, here's the thing. Brendan used to give me this whole spiel because I was on his show Below the Belt as well, and we had this conversation right before the fight happened. And he goes, he's like, oh, if he fights the way he fought against Ali Quinta and this and that, I'm like, it's completely different. You're trying to shoot for Khabib to shoot on Ali Quinta, who's like 5'7", it's a different game than shooting on somebody who's
really
5'11".
Good wrestler.
Yeah, and a good wrestler.
Yeah.
And he's got some pop in his hands.
Yeah.
And he knows, and he knew with the fight that he knew that Khabib was going to try to take him down. Khabib's, and people got to remember, during that week, Khabib went through 5 or 6 opponents. Remember, it was supposed to be Pettis, supposed to be somebody else, supposed to be like, it went through all these people.
Max Holloway, they pulled him off the weight cut.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally the last minute.
And so when all of that happens, you're not the same fighter you were when you showed up in Vegas or wherever the fight was supposed to be, thinking you're going to fight this person.
Exactly.
And so I cut him a little slack in that fight, and then fighting someone like Ali Quinta, who's a fucking savage. That guy, like, he's so good. He's never
tough as nails.
Never gets the credit he deserved. Absolute savage, and just a gamer. And so when you have to shoot on someone, I don't know how tall he is, 5'7", 5'8", you know, but it's a lot harder to get low on someone like that and get the takedown on him. So when I was telling Brent, I'm like, he's like, if he stands with him, he's going to get knocked out. Well, who did the dropping in that fight? You know, it was Khabib. Khabib did the dropping, because when you make someone fear your takedown that much, your natural reaction is to drop your hands real quick to try to get the underhooks.
And he threw that right hand like a fastball too. It was like a whip.
And so what that's in all the years I've trained with him, he's just learned, like, what he does, he drops in, dips his head, and comes back over with the overhand left or the overhand right, and it finds its mark. He sees it before he throws it. And most guys will just throw blindly. He dips his head, comes back up, and he sees his shot, and then he throws it. It's different, and the majority of the time it lands. And I've been on the other end of that shit quite a bit. Can't fucking stand it.
Well, listen, brother, we just did 3 hours. Can you believe that?
Walk in the park, Kazansky.
Time just fucking flew by.
Walk in the park.
Tell people how to get a hold of your podcast with Big John. It's called Weighing In.
It's called Weighing In. Yeah, we're on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, all the platforms. We're on all the platforms. And then I own a gym and a clothing line called Knox.
And tell people your Instagram and...
Yep, Instagram is @TheRealPunk. So The Real Punk is my Instagram.
Beautiful. Glad we finally did this, brother.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you.
Yep.
Josh Thomson, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye. See ya.